What is going on, boys? It's your boy Gsluke here with a little midday special stream. Going to call it our lunchtime drafts. Just going through a few best ball together, a few of the last minute strategies that I have my eyes on. And because depth charts have come out over the last day or so, we have a pretty good idea of some of those depth running backs. Like a Jalen Warren, I actually talked about it in my Discord today. He was moved up from running back number 3 up to running back number 2 over the last 24 hours. And as a result, is going to be a key factor of some of my late round picks. I mean, something right around 17th, 18th round. I think that he's a very solid piece of value, especially considering somebody like Najee Harris might be dealing with injury concerns. So a lot that we've learned. We'll talk about some of that, some of the week 1 DFS for the main slate. We'll talk about Thursday night football between the Bills and Rams. And of course, any of your live questions. I see a few of you down there. We've got Zach, who I always love to see down here in chat. He says, let's go, Luke. Football excites you so much. Me too. I'm really looking forward to this weekend. And even though the Steelers aren't playing on Thursday, it has that similar level of excitement, right? Like first day of school type of vibes. So I'm looking forward to that. Nick's down there. What's going on? And Nick says, Luke finally doing a live stream anytime I can watch. I love to see it, right? I actually wanted to switch it up a little bit. I'm going to start to do that a little bit more often. When I had that live stream at 9 a.m., it seemed like a lot of people enjoyed that, were able to tune in before they got their days started, that sort of thing. So I'm going to start to mix it in a little bit. Some early morning live streams, particularly for NFL. I think on Sundays, I might go live as early as like 8 a.m., which for me is like super early, but yeah, we'll have to see. Let me go ahead and share my screen. We're going to get this started. Again, it's going to be a little bit more relaxed here. We're going to jump, in between picks rather than just talking about the board. We're actually going to hop over here, talk about Thursday night football. We'll talk about the main slate too, and even some prize pick stuff. If some people hop down here and chat, we'll talk about some of the NFL picks that are like on the board, and then maybe some of the golf picks when they're posted a little bit later, because they will be posting the DP World Tour over there. And even if you're not playing prize picks for the DP World Tour, it might be a little bit helpful for just trying to play DFS there. So a lot of things we're going to talk about here. So hopefully this fills up quickly. This is the smaller $5 best ball over there on Draftkings. I was able to get in right around, I think at last count, it was like 130 something lineups there in the main $5 best ball. I'm looking to add at least 18, 20 lineups to get up to the 150 that I need, if not more. So we'll have to see there. And one thing I've noticed with this secondary tournament, some of the last minute drafts that I've been in, is I've had some complete slapdicks. I've had drafts where I've had, I would call it luck with some of the guys that I had fall to me over the first few rounds. But it's beyond that. It's guys that were just uneducated with their drafting. I was able to get, for example, it was a Kelsey Mahomes stack, but I also had Derrick Henry and Nick Chubb. So I had those 4 players, so the first 4 rounds, which makes no sense at all that I would be able to get all 4 of those players. And then in another draft, I was able to get a Herbert stack with Keenan Allen and Mike Williams. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. Like just those sort of players falling, like Mike Williams went drafted like 2.5 rounds later than he should have. You're going to get some wild drafts this late in the year. So pretty much no matter what pick I'm getting, I'm actually in here with LSU Nick right now, which is hilarious, who's down here in chat. So we're going to be drafting against somebody down there in chat. That's hilarious. He said, is that a new mic? He might be using my old mic. Let me go ahead and check it out. We have some time here, and hey, we're in the same draft. That's kind of funny. Let's see. It's using my Yeti. I don't know. Maybe I just sound different in the morning. That might be a legit thing. I don't know. Throughout the day, my voice gets weaker. I have no idea, man. But we're in the same draft. That's hilarious, and you're picking right before me. So you're going to be sniping picks from me. I'm going to be sniping picks from you. That's going to be intriguing on here. You shouldn't have entered the same contest. You said right before you too. Yeah, but think about the other way around, right? So it's we're at the worst possible position. Let's just say that, Nick. It's gonna be fun. We're gonna be frustrated in both directions. I can just already tell, but that's okay. Going into this draft, I've been a lot more flexible. I'll say that too. There's been a lot of times where I've started drafting guys that I haven't taken before. Like, for example, the Ward guy from Cleveland. I know a lot of people are really high on him this year. I haven't been drafting him nearly as much, at least through the first 2 weeks of me doing my best ball drafts. But over the last, 6, 7 drafts, I think I've taken him like 4 or 5 times, right? So those players that I'm maybe low in exposure on that I need to force in, I've started to draft those sort of players. So I don't always recommend that. Forcing in players is never really a good thing, but I'm not forcing it in over my head, right? It's like going down, taking somebody like, let's say, 6 or 7 spots above ADP, just to make sure that I can lock them in, right? So I'm not doing anything crazy, but I have noticed that in general, the drafts are playing a little bit softer. I mean, look at that. You had Jonathan Taylor go 1. Okay, that makes sense. But then Justin Jefferson went number 2, which to me is surprising. I mean, you just don't see that very often. You can normally get him at pick number 4. So the fact that someone found it necessary at pick number 2 to take him, I mean, that would be overreaching, right? In the first round, you pretty much take best player available, right? You just take the guy that you like up there. I tend to like running backs, but if I have an elite level wide receiver there, I'll take them too. The issue is when you start taking like Justin Jefferson at 2, where that's one of the only 2 spots where you can either take a JT or somebody like a Christian McCaffrey, and you're giving that up, right? Normally you can get him at 4, then you can get somebody else better paired up with him on the back end of the next round. It's just, I don't understand why people do that. I don't see any upside to do that. So let's see who Nick takes here. We had both receivers off the board, which I think makes sense. That's right around where they should be going, right there at 5 and 6. Now we have this Burgene guy and then LSU Nick, and I have an idea who LSU Nick's going to pick. Pretty good idea. We shall see if I'm correct. Yeah, he picked a running back, which makes perfect sense. So this leaves me with decent wide receiver who I don't believe in, somebody like Najee Harris. Steelers running back who I also don't really believe in this year because he's on self-admittedly a lower tier offense. And then jumping down into these wide receiver rankings, I'm going to take Travis Kelce. This is a spot where I'll reach for somebody that I personally think is going to have a monster year. I think that Travis Kelce is going to be by far the best tight end. In fact, I think he'll average well over 20 fantasy points with the departure of Tyreek Hill. I mean, he was already a usage monster. Now, after the fact, I mean, he's going to get maybe a 10, 11%. I mean, let's say 7 to 15% increase in terms of his usage from an already just insane number. He's going to have an absolutely ridiculous year. So Travis Kelce, I'm willing to take a little bit of a shot on and maybe go to a stack later or maybe not, right? I don't really force in stacks for best ball as much as other people do. The one thing that I do have to worry about now is making sure I can get a running back, right? So Najee Harris, I don't really like. Not a huge Stephon Diggs fan, so that's why I actually went past those 2 players. So it makes sense that they went, right? ADP wise, they were values, but I'm not personally very high on them. Like I have hardly any exposure to either player, and I don't plan on getting that much exposure unless I'm trying to get like a Josh Allen stack, which I have a few with Stephon Diggs and Josh Allen there, but it's not something that I'm actively looking to force in. I did it a few times early, and I'm going to run with those lineups. I don't think I need to add anything else there. Let's see. So a few candidates here because Nick can't snipe my player this time. I didn't talk about last time. It made perfect sense to take Dalvin Cook. I definitely don't like that I had to reach for somebody like Travis Kelce, but we still have a few running backs that I like, particularly the top 2. We can either get Barkley or Swift here. I'm going to be pretty happy about it. We can take either one. So we have our pick at it. Somebody took Josh Allen in the early part of the second round. That's a little bit of a questionable decision. I'll just say that. I don't want to rake on him too bad, right? Still Josh Allen, still a great player, but definitely a little bit of a reach there. We have Barkley versus Swift. It's like whether we believe in his health with Saquon Barkley, right? And I personally do think that he's the better talent. In PPR, you got to give a little bit of credit to Swift. I'm going to go with Saquon Barkley there, but I do think that Swift is probably a second best option. It's probably who Nick's either going to take Swift or Jones, I would imagine. I thought about Jones too. Yeah, he took Swift. Swift is pretty decent in PPR formats. You do have to worry about the offensive efficiency, but Aaron Jones also has AJ Dillon there. And I don't know, Jamal Williams isn't going to be taking that many carries from Swift. Maybe a few, right? But not nearly as many as AJ Dillon is going to take from Aaron Jones, particularly down on the goal line. So, yeah, I agree with that there. I like Saquon Barkley actually a little bit more just because of his upside, but damn, even that whole New York offense, like it seems like it should get better, right? Daniel Jones, another year of progression. Okay, he should get a little bit better. In terms of talent, he looks pretty decent. I mean, it's really the team around him that was letting him down. They picked up a few pieces on the O-line, young wide receiver and Wayne. They have Tony out there. They have, who's their tight end? A pretty decent tight end out there in New York. I think that they're a little bit underrated. And maybe it's because they're young and I see the progression in them. And other people don't necessarily always consider that. I think they're going to be a little bit better than people are giving them credit for. That's what I'll say there. Let's see what Nick's got down there. He says, it's like I was planning on drafting with you. Yeah, I figured. And thing is, during the day, not that many people are drafting. So you can actually get away with that. But if you're doing it at like night, that sort of thing, it's sometimes pretty tough to get into the same draft. So I'm glad you got in here, though. It makes it a little bit more interesting. I can talk about your decisions too, rather than just what I'm doing here. But I'm okay with this story. I like Kelsey. I like Barkley. I have a ton of Kelsey. I'll just say that. He's one of my highest exposed plays of the year. In terms of other guys that were picked that I have a lot of exposure to, and I kind of wanted to talk about that a little bit here on stream. I have a ton of Austin Eckler. I believe he's in something like 18% of my best ball lineups, which doesn't sound like all that much. But when you're playing a portfolio approach, I mean, that's extremely aggressive. Like extremely aggressive. As 8% is the average, right? You have 12. Let's give you the exact number here, right? You have 12 picks, right? So you have 100 divided by 12, which I believe is right around 8. Let's give you the exact answer. It's 12 and a half, right? So if you have 12.5% as your like pure bait, actually I did it the other way around. I'm not thinking there. There you go. 100 divided by 12, it's 8.3. So if the average is going to be 8.3, right, for everyone taken in the first round on average, and I'm taking something close to 20%, that's nearly 3x the field, right? It's, at least for expectation for first round players, I'm more than happy with that, especially for guys that I really like. Let me think. For Austin Eckler, yeah, it's close to 20%. I know with Travis Kelce, it's also close to 20%. So the reason why I'm able to get so much is I don't have much Justin Jefferson. I'm not really forcing him in up top. I don't have that much Jonathan Taylor or McCaffrey. And that's not by design, right? If I have the first or second pick, I'm taking Taylor or McCaffrey, but I've gone way below expectation there with the first pick. I have not gone that many. I mean, off the top of my head, I think I'm like 4 or 5% of each player. And like I said, every single time I had access to either one. I took McCaffrey a little bit more up top at number 1 than somebody like Jonathan Taylor. But I still have only 5% of each player. So that just shows you how much under expectation I've ran at number 1 and 2. Because I've not gone creative up there. I've not gone crazy. I said, as long as work doesn't get in the way, there you go. Hey, it works. Let's see who you take here. So I know you have 2 running backs at this point, so you probably don't take a running back here, right? That would make a lot of sense. You probably tight end, wide receiver, you go running back. You went Pittman, okay. I'm not the biggest fan of Pittman. Maybe it's just bias. Like I didn't play him much as a rookie. Obviously, he played pretty well last year. I haven't played him much now. I think I have to take Mahomes, honestly, at this point. It's like almost like a forced stack where because I have Kelsey and for sure by the next time I draft, Mahomes is going to be gone. I guess I do kind of got to force that in. So like this is like the forced lineup so far. This is not nearly as effective as some of my last drafts were, but sometimes you just have to draft what's available. You're not always going to get a perfect picture out there. And it's not like these guys are drafting. I mean, like I said, early on, somebody took Justin Jefferson at number 2, right? So it's not like everyone in here is drafting like a stud. It's just that my personal favorite targets aren't really there at the positions that I'm looking for, right? So they're still getting picked. There's definitely slapdicks. Like James Conner getting picked at 26 is way too early. Even Etienne at like 29. I mean, there's guys being picked that I definitely don't agree with, especially this early in the draft. So we're going to get some value here. So we do have the Mahomes to Kelsey stack. I would like to add one more piece to that. So I hate to say it, but I may push down and get Juju. I don't have that many Mahomes, Kelsey, then Juju stacks. So I'm not against it. I may actually go and do that. So we'll have to see here. He might get picked. Who knows? I think he's probably the best wide receiver on the board. I don't think that many people are convinced with Amon-Ra St. Brown, especially with the people that they've added. And it's also the Detroit offense with Jared Goff as their quarterback, right? So he's not really flying off the boards here. Same thing with T. Higgins because he's there in a very competitive offense. But auto draft did just take Higgins for us, so that's good. DJ Moore, if we have to take DJ Moore, I'm okay with it. We're getting him well above ADP. He's a talented number 1 wide receiver. I ideally do want Juju here, though. Okay, well, we have our pick of him, but I'm going to take Juju. It's the 4 stack, taking them up there in the first 5 rounds. But hey, maybe it'll work out. Go out there weeks 15, 16, 17, get hot as a unit. We've seen crazier things happen. So I'm decently okay with that. I do think that we reached on a few picks, but we also completed the stack, so we can't complain. All right, so we got that chief stack taken care of. I ideally need a running back at this point, so we'll have to see what's going on there. If there's anybody of value, other than that, I want to load up on wide receiver. You guys know my strategy here: wide receiver, tight end. I try to take as many bodies as humanly possible, but we do got to take a running back at some point. But I'm not going to reach for this running back. I mean, if I have to play by committee for my second spot, hope that Barkley is a cornerstone piece this year, so be it. I'm not somebody that's going to go out there and draft 7 running backs and try to be like super strong at that position. Be like, okay, every week I'm going to have 2 guys that score 20 points. That is never my goal with DFS, particularly for best ball. And honestly, I think if that's your strategy, you need to reevaluate it, because the winners every year, that's usually the opposite of what they're doing, right? They're usually prioritizing filling in that flex spot, which with a wide receiver, it's much easier to get to 15 to 20 fantasy points with somebody drafted, and let's say rounds like 7 through 15 there, than it is a running back. In fact, running backs, it's like a 5% clip. Like, it never happens because they never see the field, right? It's second, third string running backs. Whereas, let's say third, maybe fourth string even wide receivers are going to see the field almost every single game. And it can still go out there, have that ceiling performance out of nowhere. You see it all the time there. That's why I like loading up on those wide receivers, particularly in the mid rounds, right? We're here at round 5. I still do have to get that running back, though. That's a priority. But after that, it's just going to be get those ceiling performance type of players. That's what you're looking for in best ball. Because there's no risk in taking some of these high risk players, it's not like in season long where if you're taking somebody with upside, you have to live with the floor when you roster them. On best ball, it's all upside, right? Particularly if you have decent starters, right? I mean, Juju's no slouch. He's going to be the quote unquote number 1 wide receiver on that team. So, I mean, I think he'll get 100 catches, probably put at least 1,000 yards. I like that there. Nick says, I think Ryan has one more good year in him. Do you mean Matt Ryan? Or let me see who you have. For LSU, Nick. I think you're talking about Matt Ryan, right? Yeah, with Michael Pittman Jr. Yeah, I do think it's an upgrade. Obviously, him getting Matt Ryan now, I do think that'll help him. Maybe that's what I wasn't considering about it all. Honestly, that's probably it, to be honest with you. I wasn't considering the quarterback upgrade. Yeah, I guess it makes sense that he goes there. He had a good year as a rookie, right? So we're looking for a running back. I don't love Breece Hall. I don't hate the idea of taking a shot on Cam Akers here. I'm just going to do it because we need a running back. We're taking him right at ADP. And between him and Breece Hall, we know that first off, LA Rams are going to have a much better offense, not even going to be close. We know that in terms of touchdown production, he's going to edge somebody like Breece Hall. And then on top of that, you have the unknown factor of a rookie, which could be good, could also be really bad. I don't need some developmental prospect as my second running back, right? I need somebody that's going to be a for sure thing. The thing with Cam Akers is, I'm drafting him at a point here where he's being treated as like a fringe RB number 2, right? He's not being treated as like your number 1, your number 2 even. Perhaps even a running back number 3. I think he has running back 1 upside. If he fully heals from that injury, gets back, is able to get out there at full strut, he is more than capable of going out there and just absolutely lighting it up. So I really like that there. Let's see who Nick took. He took Dalton Schultz. Okay. Took a tight end. He's another guy that I really like just because in a good offense, right over there with the Cowboys, you have Dak Prescott throwing them balls, effective O-line, effective running game. He's just, you want tight ends that are in effective offenses, right? Like Kelsey. That's why I prioritize him so much. He's also the number 1 wide receiver there for Kansas City, so he gets a little bit of an extra boost. But Dalton Schultz, tight end, who's a little bit touchdown dependent, in a very effective offense, or what should be. That's a great pick there. So let's see what we've got. I'm trying to load up on wide receiver there. We did get Cam Akers. I'm not going to pass up a great value at running back, though, and I don't see one right now. We might have one in a round or two. The wide receivers I'm choosing between, I guess, would have to be Thielen, because I need a starter, right? So Thomas, if we started really strong at wide receiver, would be in contention. So it's either going to be Mooney, Thielen, or Lazard. I'm going to go with Thielen there. The main reasoning for me is that with Thielen, you're dealing with a great red zone threat. Even with Justin Jefferson going off last year, he still saw plenty of production. So I don't see that tailing off, right? Even with Jefferson being a top 5 draft pick this year, He's definitely the number 2 option there, but a number 2 in that offense, I talked about it with Diggs actually. Diggs just gets a ton of attention over there. Like as like a great wide receiver. Like he's going in like the first round. You guys saw me like not draft him here in this draft. Main reasoning for that is the Bills offense is nowhere near the same as the Minnesota Vikings offense. That offense can sustain unbelievable fantasy scoring because they run their offense through 4 players. Like they don't use their third and fourth string wide receivers. They hardly ever see the field. And when they do, it's usually just to run conditioning, go out there, run a fly route, open up the field for those other 3 players because they run it through Dalvin Cook, Thielen, Justin Jefferson, and their tight end, which they'll sub them out a little bit, right? The tight end will change from time to time, but it's those 4 players. They don't really stray outside of that. And from a fantasy perspective, that's an absolute gold mine, particularly when those 4 players are good, right? When they're actually able to go out there and produce, get into the red zone, that sort of thing, which is what we've seen for the last 3 to 4 years. They've had pretty good skill position players up there in Minnesota. That's why Thielen, even as an actual number 2 wide receiver, may produce like a wide receiver 1 in fantasy this year. So I like that. He's being drafted as like a wide receiver 3 even, right? And I have him as a wide receiver 2. I'm more than confident with that. In fact, I think he's going to have a lot of weeks where he's putting up wide receiver 1 production. So definitely like that pick. I don't like that he has the same bye week as Cam Akers, but I really don't worry about the bye week thing. It's all about those last 4 weeks to me. If we're going to have a bunch, like 8, 9 wide receivers on the roster, we can make it work. At running back, we're going to take a few shots down low later. If we have 4 or 5 running backs on the roster, we can make it work. So not that worried about it. At some point when we get to the middle rounds, we have a little bit more time. We're going to go through some of the other slates, including the Thursday night football slate, which we'll talk through some of the things we've learned from the injury report, like Van Jefferson not practicing, which is important news. And also Isaiah McKenzie has been doing a little bit of work. So we'll talk about the implications of that, the sorts of players that might end up getting a little bit of run. But at this point, I'm looking at wide receiver, and there's one guy I definitely have my eye on. Now, I'm not going to point him out. Actually, he just got drafted, so I guess I can. It was Elijah Moore there. I really wanted him there, but I think he's going up the boards for good reason at this point. He's a stud. He was last year. Now he's ideally going to have better quarterback play with Zach Wilson. I think that he's going underdrafted, or at least not in this draft, right? He went a little bit above ADP. I like to see that, though. It makes sense. I think it's a great play, great draft pick. Let's see who Nick takes. He took Christian Kirk. Okay. So, yeah, I'm going to take that other running back I was talking about. I didn't really want to say it because I didn't want to jinx it. I wanted J.K. Dobbins to fall to us. And he might not play the first 2 weeks. He might actually play week 1. We don't know yet, right? News is probably going to come out over the next day or so. I believe he didn't practice in full Monday. So, ideally, I don't care if he plays week 1, even week 2, right? You can probably give him that one off. He's getting back to us by week 3. I know he's like running back 2 potential, maybe even running back 1 potential because of how much the Falcons rush. Also, another high efficiency offense there with Lamar Jackson at the helm. You have Mark Andrews out there. I think he's being underdrafted too. J.K. Dobbins, right? Like people, they aren't willing to stomach a few weeks of him putting up 0 points. That's going to happen to everyone, guys. People are going to get injured, right? He's just starting the year injured. So be it, right? He's still a great rusher. And honestly, I think he's being drafted 3-4 rounds too late. And anytime he falls to me in a draft, even if I have 2 running backs that I feel pretty decent about, I'm going to take him as depth. I can even use him at flex a few weeks if I really do have a 3-headed attack at running back. If Cam Akers gets back from the injury, plays like I think he can. If Saquon Barkley comes back from his injury, plays like I think he can. This is the all-injury team at running back, right? Like Barkley, Akers, and Dobbins there. Hey, I love it. It's high volatility. If they come back from their injuries and play like they can, I just got 3 players that are being severely underdrafted. Now, I'm not going to make it the quad there and take DeAndre Hopkins. That would be pushing it a little bit. I do want a wide receiver, though. So I consider Goddard, but Kelsey is just a stud. I just can't get over that. I don't think we need to force it there. I personally, this is tough. I don't love any of the wide receivers, at least in terms of ADP that we should be taking. So I'm going to go ahead and just take Cooper. I mean, he's not one of my favorite wide receivers, to be quite honest with you, but he is the best one that I have available. I'm not going to take Hopkins there. I mean, I have so much of them. Let me think about it. I think I had like 14% Hopkins the last time I checked. It's a lot more than I wanted, but because he falls so often in drafts, I end up taking him a lot more often. Finally, someone took him on the board. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. Let's see. Let's look at that guy's team. He took him. I'm assuming he has good wide receivers because most of the times that I've taken him, it's when I already have studs, which he kind of does, right? Like you had Hill, you had Amon-Ra St. Brown already, and Chris Godwin. So why not go out there and take DeAndre Hopkins? Yeah, I'm all for that and that type of build. So this guy's probably not watching it, but if he is, hats off to you, man. That makes sense. But if you're like me and you have a weak wide receiver core, right? I don't even have, I guess we're in the same position. We both had 3 wide receivers before he came there. I'd rather have his 3 wide receivers than mine personally, but we'll have to see. I do have that Chiefs stack. That's the one thing that like helps this lineup, right? We had to fish a little bit for that. We'll see. I like our chances to rebound here in the mid rounds. You have a stack down, so we have that correlation. Now we just got to get to the playoffs, right? Now we just got to earn our way into that, through week 15, through week 14. Sorry, getting a little bit mixed up on the roles there. We got to get to the playoffs, and then I love our chances, right? Because we have that stack. Players that I expect to rebound from injury, we'll have to see. I like our chances if we get to the dance. We just got to get there, which might be a little bit of a struggle at this point because it is a lower projecting lineup because I did fish down for some players, right? Like I took a quarterback early. That's never really ideal when trying to play something like a best ball strategy. But if it can get you a stack, like I know somebody before, he took Stephon Diggs and then he also fished and took somebody like Josh Allen. That it makes sense. Like there's a time and place for it. You just have to execute well above expectation for the rest of your draft to get into the playoffs. So we'll have to see how we can do this. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. Is what it is. Yeah, Robert does just like me down there. He said he woke up with the biggest smile. Yeah, as soon as we get closer and closer to him, it gets better for me. Nick says you were taking Thielen. I'm sorry about that, buddy. Yeah, you're gonna probably take players that I want here, to be honest with you. It's just that's how drafting works, especially when you're playing against people that know what they're doing, right? I honestly don't even know who I'm gonna take. I want wide receivers and tight ends. I guess there's Dawson Knox there I could take, right? You took George Pickens. Yeah, I haven't drafted him once this year. I don't know. I think he's being a little bit overhyped. And every time I say that, people look at me like sideways, like I'm crazy, but I don't know. I have to see it in versus like cornerback 2s, cornerback 1s before I'm completely sold. I might take Dawson Knox, but I don't need to. You know what? I'm going to take Sky Moore. All right. So the whole thing with Sky Moore, he might not even play wide receiver for the Chiefs this year. At least for my understanding, he's like wide receiver number 4 for their team. He hasn't even been taking that many snaps. But the same exact situation unfolded with Tyreek Hill when he was a rookie. And if you guys remember, like a few weeks into the season, then he started to get snaps at wide receiver and just exploded for that team. Sky Moore has a similar 40 time. It's a little bit slower than Tyreek Hill. Again, Tyreek Hill is just built different out there. But they're saying that this guy might be a little bit more polished a wide receiver. So we'll have to see. I think Patty Mahomes can make a lot of wide receivers look like absolute studs. I'm not saying that Travis Kelce is not a stud or somebody like Tyreek Hill isn't an absolute stud. They are, right? They're still going to be Pro Bowl level players if they moved elsewhere. We'll get to see that with Tyreek Hill this year, right? The thing I like about Sky Moore is maybe he fits that same type of mold, right? Where they're using him on jet sweeps, these little, shuffle passes, or maybe full on just go routes, that sort of thing. I think he has upside. Now, do I think he's a safe pick? By no means. But, when we already have this Kansas City stack working, I'm going to be a little bit more willing to get there in terms of taking a shot on Sky Moore, right? Because, imagine that if he goes off this year, if, it's Juju out there and Kelce all catching passes from Mahomes, it could be a really good playoff run. So we'll have to see. We're setting up ourselves for a playoff run, right? We just got to get to the playoffs now. That even made it harder for us to get into the playoffs, but now we have an even better chance of smashing if we get there. So let's get to the playoffs. So we're looking for wide receivers. I love Tyler Boyd there. I do like Julio Jones too. They both come to mind. I'm not going to force in Chase Claypool just because I'm a Steeler fan. To be honest, the one that I have my eye on here, I think it has to be Boyd. I'm going to take Tyler Boyd because of his consistency. Again, wide receiver is my weakest position at this point. I'll admit that because, again, Sky Moore, a little bit more of an unknown prospect. I mean, Cooper, right? He doesn't have a quarterback throwing to him. that's really competent at all for at least 11 games. Another player that in the playoffs is going to see a huge uptick in production, right? When he has Deshaun Watson back and whatnot, we're really going to have to work hard in these last few rounds. Again, we keep kind of delaying it with some of these picks here. But if we get into the playoffs, this lineup is absolute money. I'm looking forward to it. Travis says Cooper, a nice little sleeper, thinking target monster. He's going to get a ton of targets. I just worry about the team's offensive production. Like without Deshaun Watson, I think losing Baker Mayfield's a pretty big deal for that offense. I think a lot of people don't treat it that way. So if you're not a big Baker Mayfield guy, then maybe you don't think it's that big of a deal. I kind of worry about that. I don't have that much Cooper, but I have him here. Again, he was the best wide receiver available by far. So I definitely went ahead and picked him, but I don't know. I don't feel great about it. I'll just say that. But it is what it is. He definitely was the best option that I had. So I just got to go with it. Even if it kind of sucks. There are a few guys that I just refuse to draft this year. Guys that I've just quote unquote said I'm full on fading. He's not one of them, right? He's somebody I'm probably matching the field on, which I'm okay with Coop. I think he's a wide receiver 1 being drafted among guys that are like wide receiver 2s, wide receiver 3s, which always brings upside, particularly if the quarterback play surprises us. He goes out there, just plays a little bit better than we expect. That could definitely be a gold mine. So we'll see. I kind of agree with you, Travis, to be honest. So let's see. I need a couple wide receivers. That's going to be the theme of this draft here. We didn't take wide receiver early, so we're going to have to play it by committee. So somebody like Claypool went, but Cole Hardman went. I wasn't going to take a 4th wide receiver for Kansas City. That'd be a little bit overdoing it, so that's okay. I'm not that worried about it. There's a few guys I have my eye on. Let's see. I may actually fish for somebody here. There's somebody I have in mind down low that I might fish for, but I don't know. Might not be worth it. Tua's off the board. Okay. Not a big fan of playing Tua this year. I have like 2% Tua at this point. Let's see. Naheem Hines. Okay. He's going to get you a lot of consistent points, Nick. He's going to be kind of like a spot fill back for you. That's honestly pretty decent, pretty valuable in best ball. Let's see. Don't hate taking Rondale Moore. People don't want to draft him because he's questionable for week 1, which again is not that important here. I do think I'm going to take Michael Gallup, though. So the reasoning there is Michael Gallup, he's the clear number 2 wide receiver over there in Dallas. Tolbert's going to be playing over there in the slot, and he's going to be out for, let's say, 3-4 weeks. Likely, he's definitely not going to play week 1, likely not playing week 2 as well. If he comes back by week 5, you're looking at somebody who's going to post you an average right around like 15, 16 points a game because of how productive that Cowboys offense can be. And I'm getting him here in round 11. I'm getting a wide receiver 2 production. Again, this team in general is built to get stronger as the year goes on, which I kind of like. We're just going to need some of the guys that are healthy early to really step it up, to go out there, put up serviceable scores. And then by week 5, 6, when we have all of our guys playing, all of them playing at full capacity, I mean, we're going to have ideally the best team in the league, hopefully, right? And even the guys coming back from injury, right? Like Barkley, who hopefully is going to be at full reign this year. He'll probably be full ready right away. But Akers, right, he's got to get a little bit tuned up. Somebody like Dobbins is going to have to get a little bit tuned up throughout the year. When that happens, I feel really good about our chances. So let's see what we've got here. We've got Kenneth Walker at the top, who nobody wants to take a shot on. And at least from my understanding, there's actually a chance that he plays week 1. Now, he's more likely closer to doubtful than he is probable. But the fact that he even has a chance to play week 1, I think speaks volumes there. And because they're in rebuilding mode, I could see them going to him a little bit faster than they would other players. Let's do our due diligence. I like him the most. I mean, Gage is all right. I like Devontae Parker. Yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and take Kenneth Walker. I don't have that much exposure to him. I think a lot of people are a little bit weary of the fact that he's starting the year injured. It's just the theme of this team. I guess we're just going to go with that for this team. Are guys that get better as the year goes on, because I could see him increasing his workload just week after week after he gets healthy in there until perhaps at some point throughout the year getting the starting job. We'll have to see. You can see at this point, he isn't sure whether he's going to play week 1. Yeah, that's the last thing I saw. I wanted to look at his practice availability, whether he's practiced partially or in full over this week. I'm assuming he may actually not be practicing that much. We'll have to see. I guess Rashad Penny is definitely going to start, but I don't know. Throughout the year, I think Kenneth Walker, somebody they put a lot of draft equity behind, might end up starting at some point. Let's see what we got in chat. See if there's anyone down there. Nick says sneaky Colt stack. Yeah, I noticed that. That's a decent idea. Let's see who you took this time. Who was it? It was you took Matt Ryan. That's right, and Naheem Hines. Okay, I like that because he puts a lot of production out there with the wide receiver. So it's almost like you're taking a wide receiver at running back. So yeah, I forgot that you were going with that stack. So that makes sense. Imagine if I took Matt Ryan. That would have been annoying. That definitely would have been a little bit annoying there. But let's see what we've got. Got one tight end, one QB. We want to add a little bit of depth there, but we got to remember that we have Kelsey and Mahomes. So it's not like we need top tier options or even middle tier options to back up those two players. If one of them ends up going down, we're probably not going to win anyways because they were top 3, top 4 draft picks for us. So I'm not going to worry about their backups that much. So like Gesicki, for example, I'm not going to force in just because he's dropping below ADP. Gage, I don't know why these guys aren't drafting guys that are hurt. It's like a week injury long. Do they not understand that like everyone's going to get injured? I feel like some of the people out there just don't understand that. Like, let's see. If they drops you should pick them, Nick, honestly. Or Gage. If not, I'm picking them. I'll just tell you that. Like these slapdicks just don't understand that injuries into the year aren't that bad. Glad you were busy and forgot. Well, yeah, I wasn't gonna steal them from you. I don't do that. The thing is, like, people see like other people going for stacks and then try and block it. Like, there's no point, right? Like, it's not gonna help them win the season-long race to get into the playoffs. That is all about just like drafting the best players, having the best variance in terms of when your players spike. The playoffs, like you just want to have the most correlated lineup, right? And if everyone takes stacks in your pool, like who cares, right? Like let everyone take a stack of their favorite quarterback, right? Because it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. You took Gage. That's definitely the play in terms of ADP. At wide receiver, I do really like Jarvis Landry this year. I do like a few of the other guys down here too, like Myers. I like Marvin Jones. Heck, there's a lot of guys in this next tier I like. So I'm feel pretty decent about taking somebody like Jarvis Landry. Now, is he going to give us a ton of upside? Probably not, right? If you look at his game log last year, 19 points, pretty decent. 19 points, we call that a ceiling. Also 19 week one. So we hit 3 out of the 17 weeks. We're going to need a lot better than that. That's for sure. But he's in a similar type of role in this offense in what should be a little bit more effective because I think they're going to throw a lot more than what he had up there in the Browns offense. So maybe it'll help him out. We'll see. He was effective before, right? Before he went up there to the Browns. He was out there putting, I think it was like 15 and a half, 16 fantasy points per game, which for somebody out here in round 14, we'd have to feel pretty decent about. He's somebody who's our 7th wide receiver. If he's going to post us 13, 14-point games as a fill-in spot at one of the wide receiver positions because we maybe have duds with our other players, that's fine, right? Like I need those sort of guys. I need to make sure I'm not going out there and posting 12, 13 points that often, right? Closer to 16, 17 as a fill-in would be pretty sweet. So I like that. Let's see what we've got. You said Landry is going to be great when Thomas quits. That's funny. You said you won't have Gage. I figured you were going to take Gage. I told you. Like, I would recommend taking Gage if he gets there. Like, I was legitimately saying that. Like, I think that was the pick. It's okay that you took him. There's a lot of other wide receivers I like, and I have a lot of him to begin with. I have like 12% Gage, which is well over the field. So let's see what we've got. So Christian Watson, not a big fan of. Okay, pretty glad that you took him. I'm going to take Jacoby Myers. That is a no-brainer for me. Jacoby Myers, the number 1 wide receiver in New England, dealing with an upgraded O-line. Mac Jones looks like an absolute stud heading into the year. Looks like he's put on like 30, 40 pounds of pure muscle. And then you're dealing with Bill Belichick-led offense, absolute mastermind. I mean, they're just going to get a lot better. And you're dealing with, I don't want to say he's like a number 1 wide receiver because I guess it's like 1A, 1B between him and Devontae Parker. But I like that Patriots stack as a little bit of like a backdoor sort of thing because, you don't have to invest early equity into it. I mean, we can take somebody like Jacoby Myers there. Let's see. What is Mac Jones' ADP? Mac Jones is 175 ADP, so I can probably take him with my next pick and then draft somebody, let's see, like a Hunter Henry. Let's see. He might have actually already gone. Yeah, Hunter Henry already went, right? But maybe draft somebody like a Devontae Parker, right? Who actually I think already went too. Okay, so maybe we don't go with the stack, right? Because we can't fill it out. I just realized, right? I was a little bit late to the party on that. But I like Jacoby Myers more than Devontae Parker, and they're opposite in terms of their ADP. So I'm okay. I'm okay with that as an island play there, right? Getting the player that I think's better at a lower ADP. Let's see, where's Devontae Parker going? 141. So a whole like round and a half before. I don't agree with that. I'll just say that I do not agree with that ADP there. So let's see. We have how many picks? 10 picks until we're up again. We're gonna have Nick before us too, so I don't want to give away too much. I do need a quarterback and a tight end though. As much as I think that I'm okay with Mahomes and Kelsey, I do have to have somebody to back them up. So we'll have to see if that happens here. Ideally, maybe Jared Goff falls to us. I mean, he's not a great quarterback, but I'll take him. In fact, I would probably classify him as dog shit, to be honest with you. But we'll see. Maybe he makes it into our labs, maybe not. But let's look at some of the Thursday night stuff. So I mentioned before that Van Jefferson did not practice, or at least was heavily, let's see, was he heavily limited or didn't practice? Didn't practice at all at Monday's practice. He's likely going to be out, which means, and Isaiah McKenzie lost his injury designation. So he's going to be good to go there. Tutu Atwell might end up being the value play of the slate. Him or Ben Skoranek. So you have $1,800 Ben Skoranek, $1,000 Tutu Atwell. Both of them could be in line for significant action coming into it. So I'm going to consider it. Now, now that McKenzie has completely shaken his injury designation, first off, that means that Jamison Crowder at $5,000 is almost unplayable unless you're looking for a pure ownership pivot, which I may play him in like 10, 15% of lineups, and that's actually going to be leveraged to the field. I may go that route. And then Isaiah McKenzie is going to be like 50% out. That's the main part, is because now he doesn't have an injury designation. He's practicing all week. Everyone and anyone's going to play him. So that's going to be interesting to see. I am trying to look for a quarterback, but he took Jared Goff, of course. I guess he's just trying to snipe players now, which is fine. Again, he's a dog shit quarterback, so I'm okay with that. Galladay is going to give us borderline wide receiver 2 production when he has spike weeks, so I'm just going to take him. Again, I love really loading up on wide receiver, trying to take as many of these skill position players as possible, particularly when they're not as strong as perhaps the rest of our positions, right? At running back, I mean, we have 3 guys that I think are going to have really strong seasons. Also, Kenneth Walker III, you might end up having at least half of the role, 3-4 games into the season. I think he's going to grow in terms of his actual presence, in terms of snaps. And by the end of the year, who knows, right? Maybe injury causes it, ends up taking over the lead back role. I like my running back situation. Our quarterback and tight end situation is ridiculous. And then we're just playing wide receiver by committee. I mean, look at all these guys, right? Like Boyd, Moore, Gallup, Landry, Myers, Galladay. I like this sort of lineup. I like this kind of build. So let's see. At quarterback, there's always my true and testy little Kenny Pickett we could take. I don't know if I want to do that, though. All right, we'll see. There's guys that are a lot better on the board. Much like a Deshaun Watson, who may be worth considering taking. We'll have to see. Especially because we have Cooper. Might make that a little bit more intriguing for a little bit of a playoff stack. So a little playoff mini stack. So let's see what we've got. 2 more picks until we go here. Kind of am hoping that we don't see quarterbacks go off the board. Took Spiller, Logan Thomas. Logan Thomas I like a lot. Brevin Jordan. Why are they taking these scrub tight ends? Like, it's just, they're taking them well above ADP. Oh, well. Zay Jones. Okay. So I am going to take a quarterback here, and I do think I'm going to take Deshaun Watson. I'm going to take him a little bit earlier than most would be willing to take him, but I want to lock that in. I think that during the playoffs, that's the most important time to draft for. And this whole team, our thought process has been peak during the playoffs, right? Get in, whether it's due to luck or just really hitting it off with players like a Barkley and Akers, that sort of thing. And then when we get into the playoffs, hopefully just absolutely smack everyone. So we're going to be starting Mahomes pretty much every single week. I don't think we have to worry about that all that much. But now we have Deshaun Watson, who has a 30-point ceiling in him there in our back pocket, just waiting for the playoffs to match up with somebody like an Amari Cooper. So I like what we're doing here, to be quite honest with you. And again, we didn't need a Kenny Pickett, for example, because we are in luck. He just got drafted. That's fine. Okay. We didn't need him anyways. Because we have Patty Mahomes, right? We're not going to be starting Pickett anyways. He's not going to be posting these consistent 25-point games. And when he does, so be it, right? It's like a 2-point difference. I invested a lot of that capital that I could have put into one of those quarterbacks into another stud option like a J.K. Dobbins, for example. So I think the opportunity cost was worth it. We do need another tight end, though. That is becoming a clear issue. So we're up in 7 picks. We do have Nick going before us. Um, I don't know if I'm going to force one in because there are quite a few late end tight ends that I like getting. There's especially a couple like really late end options that I like taking that like no one drafts. So we'll see. I do want to take the best player available, which at this point, Jerick McKinnon is like clearly the best player available. So we'll have to see. That might be the move. I think he gets drafted though. One of these slappies is going to pick him. Zach Moss. They didn't pick Jerick McKinnon. He's playing for the Chiefs. That's. I mean, if he falls to us, he falls to us, I guess. But I don't. I don't know. Don't have to take him. We'll have to see what goes on here. Desmond, dude, I hate that pick. Why is they're picking some strange people at this point of the draft. So let me see. I could take McKinnon. We have 4 running back. He'll be our last running back that we draft because he fell to us in terms of ADP. We already have the Chiefs stack going, kind of similar to a Nyheim Hines, right? He's a little bit more passing dependent than most running backs, which is advantageous for a stack, right? Because maybe he catches a touchdown there from Patty Mahomes, that sort of thing. So I like what we have going on. Just stacks across the board. Guys that we're getting a lot of value on because of their injury status. And we do need a tight end. So let's go ahead and clean that up this time around. Mo Ali Cox went. I kind of wanted him, which I'm surprised Nick didn't take him for his stack there, to be honest with you. But we'll see. I got to take somebody there. And I hate all of the tight end options available. So it's going to be a fun one at tight end. We might have to take some of those late end sleepers that I was talking about that like no one drafts, which like Jonnu Smith, for example, no one ever drafts him. If anything, it's like a round 20 pick. Thad Moss, no one drafts him like ever. Donald Parham Jr., nobody ever drafts him, right? But I think he has upside if you have Evan. Oh, who is it? The starter out there. I don't think it's Evan Ingram. Whoever it is out there in LA ends up getting hurt. You can see Donald Parham having a pretty good season. There's guys you can take in the last round. So let's see the situation. Oh, AJ Green is falling. It's not my favorite pick, but maybe Nick will end up taking him. Let's see a tight end though. I'm probably going to take Jonnu Smith. First off, New England is infamous for always using 2 tight ends. So just because Hunter Henry's the tight end 1, don't think that somebody like Jonnu Smith won't get a few touches. And I really only need him for 1 week. And that's going to be the same week as Travis Kelce, right? So they have a different bye week. I didn't check that. I probably should have. Who did Nick end up drafting out of curiosity? Let's see. He took Great. Okay. Yeah, I hate the situation over there in Tampa Bay because you also have Kyle Rudolph. And then I think that Gronkowski is going to come back. So early in the year, it's going to be hard to tell who's going to get the red zone snaps. They might use 2 tight ends because Tom Brady also likes that, much like Belichick. That's kind of why I like Jonnu Smith, right? Because he set that precedent up there in New England, and now you've seen that sustain itself. I don't know. Maybe Gronk comes back. I don't know. I might draft Gronk. I'm thinking about it. I'll have to see. Like if he comes back, he's one of those high upside plays. I've taken him in, I believe, like 8% of my lineups, which is well above the field because a lot of times he's not drafted because of his status of not being on a team. So you said if Gronk don't come back, Great will be the guy. Yeah, I'll see them mixing in Rudolph though, just because of his route running. But yeah, I guess it'll probably be like a 60-40 split. You'll probably see that Great gets a lot more snaps than Kyle Rudolph. But yeah, I do think that Gronk comes back. Like I don't know. I get that vibe with him that pretty much whenever Brady is playing, especially because he's younger than Brady, that he'll probably end up playing with him. And then when Brady actually ends up putting up the cleats, probably see Rob Gronkowski actually do that too. So I've been drafting him a lot more than most. I think he's already gotten picked, right? Yeah, not yet. Okay, not yet. Let's see what we've got. Here's kind of a couple picks. We're going to talk about the prize picks board too, which I think they've added Euro Golf. Let's see. They have not yet. That's unfortunate. I was hoping they'd do it during our stream here, but we're going to be live for at least probably another 40 minutes to 50 minutes. So maybe it'll be up by then. We're also going to talk about the main slate. So we're going to talk through some of our top picks, some of the top stacks for round, week one. I almost called it round one, too. Used to golf around here. But let's focus on this draft pick now. So has Rob Gronk gone yet? Has not. That's actually pretty good to see. If he ends up going before us, that's fine, but I'll take him if he's there. If not, we're going to worry about filling out our team with another playmaker, somebody that can post like 15, 20 points. Yeah, I'm going to draft Gronk here. I like him. I think that he's going to end up getting picked up by the Bucks at some point. And last year had plenty of ceiling performances. So let's look at it. 23, 20, 14, whatever. That's decent. That's a good fill-in week. 20, 20, 19, 29. I mean, like, that's what, like 6-7 times where he's probably going to be just as good, maybe even better than a Travis Kelce. So I just need him to get picked up. If he gets picked up, that's a really solid pickup down there and in the 19th round. So it's not like we're really putting any sort of equity behind him. And at this point, I kind of want a quarterback, to be quite honest. I don't hate the idea of trying to add a third quarterback just because our backup is Deshaun Watson, who isn't going to be active for the first 11 weeks. Somebody who will be active is Geno Smith. So if he falls to us, I will be drafting him. And though he sucks, he is a backup who's at least starting, who's going to get time out there. So I'm going to take Geno. It sucks. I think that he's like by far the worst starting quarterback in the NFL, but at the very least is going to be a fill-in option that we're taking in the 20th round, right? He's our last round pick. So I don't think we have to worry about that all too much. So in terms of reviewing our draft, I'm actually going to take a look at Nick's after too, because we know he's on stream here. Can give him a little bit of idea. He says, Tom loves the guy he knows. Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, I think Gronk does too. I think he's that same sort of guy. Loyalty means a lot to them. I have Mahomes. We have the Juju stack also down there. We have Kelce, Sky Moore, and Jerick McKinnon over there for Kansas City. So we definitely have a Kansas City stack working. Our running backs are a couple bounce back candidates. They're with Barkley, Akers, and J.K. Dobbins. I tend to think that they're all going to bounce back a little bit better than most, and it's undeniable their ceilings. Like, we know if they get back to what they were before, that they're being underdrafted. They could be top 5, certainly top 10 running backs up there in terms of fantasy scoring. I mean, even J.K. Dobbins, if he misses a few weeks, could be a top 15, top 10 running back by the end of the year, especially in terms of points per game. If we just ignore the weeks that he's not playing, he's certainly going to be a top 10 running back. Just Ravens offense, number 1 running back. They rush a ton. J.K. Dobbins is an early draft pick, an absolute stud. I mean, I just don't understand why well, I do understand. People are scared, right? They're not willing to take a risk. But in best ball, when it's a $5 entry, it's not like we're paying $100 for our fantasy league for a year long. It's not like we're not entering more than one lineup. I mean, I'm entering over 150, that you can get away with taking risk, right? So that's what we went with there, right? So if these guys end up playing well this year, end up playing to their ceilings, they're going to ride us to the playoffs, right? That's going to be our ticket to getting to the postseason there, because our stack, while it's great for single round sample sizes for the entire season, maybe it isn't an ideal draft strategy, particularly because we ended up fishing for a few players, drafting them a little bit above their ADP. Down a little bit further, you have guys like Thielen, who I would like a whole lot. Cooper, who I like a little bit more just because we were able to get Deshaun Watson a little bit later, and we scattershot it at wide receiver. So I like this lineup a whole lot. I think it has a lot of upside, but I guess the one issue would be is that in terms of median projection, it's going to be on the lower half of the ones that I've drafted. A lot of the drafts that I go with, it's a lot more about just drafting the best player available. And while from trying to get to the playoffs perspective, that's great, right? You're going to make a lot more min cashes using that sort of strategy. This type of lineup is the lineup that, if you get it to the playoffs, could win you $1 million. Like this, it's just correlated to shit. Like almost everything on here is suiting up for a late playoff run. I mean, even Rob Gronkowski, right? Deshaun Watson for sure, Kenneth Walker, somebody like Sky Moore, I expect to grow into the offense. Just I'm looking forward to it. It'll be a fun lineup to track. Definitely one that I'll star over there in my tracker and make sure to follow a little bit. We're going to do another draft. So let me go ahead and get into the lobby. Knowing Nick, he'll probably get in there once again. So we'll see. Maybe we'll get matched up with Nick there. And I forgot to look at your draft. Sorry about that. We looked at a lot of your picks anyway, so I think you got a good idea there. I liked your little bit of a Colt stack, and I thought you picked good players in terms of ADP down the board. So I think you did a pretty good job there. You said, I missed my last pick, so Chuba was auto. Yeah, I don't think it's the worst auto pick. He's like the third stringer, I think, for them. But the thing with Hubbard is that he'll replace the receiving production of somebody like CMC, whereas Devonta Foreman, who's like technically, I believe, their backup running back, like in terms of rushing production, isn't going to do that. So if CMC goes down, it's going to be a spearheaded attack between those two. So I don't think it's the worst pick. I think people are like undeservingly trashing Chuba Hubbard as a pick and like not taking him because they see him as the running back number 3, but they maybe don't consider that he's going to be all of the receiving production out of the backfield. And then Foreman's going to be the guy that's rushing through the tackles, right? Taking on those hits. So we only have 3 people in here. I can guarantee you Nick gets in here. I guess, by the way, if you're watching this and you want to get in the draft, go down there to the $5 season-long best ball flea flicker, and I guess you can probably get in the same lobby. Nick did that last time. And if there's more of you in here, make sure you say hi and let us know. That'd be a lot of fun. But let's see what we've got. Let's go over here to prize picks, see if they have the golf board up yet. They don't, as expected. It's taking them a little bit of time. It's a new field. I guess I understand it. Let's take a look at the NFL, particularly what we have for Thursday night. So they do have that free square up. Make sure you use that at some point. I haven't. I'm waiting for a NFL card that I feel really good about. And one thing that they've changed with NFL is they've added in correlation scoring. So let me just show you what I'm talking about here, because it's a not, I don't think it's the best thing for the app, because I think people are going to start to make some really dumb plays. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So with NFL now, if you go over on receiving yards for quarterbacks and then under on a wide receiver on that same team, it gives you a 15x payout, which a lot of you out there are going like, oh, that's sick. Now we can get 15x payouts, right? Wrong. Never play that card. Never do that ever. I'm just making sure our draft didn't start yet. If you play this card, you probably have like a 0.0001% chance of it hitting. Because if Josh Allen's going over his passing yard prop, which is at 275, pretty high up there, Matthew Stafford 265, same sort of thing, right? It's almost certain that somebody like a Gabriel Davis, for example, or an Allen Robinson at least sniffs his prop, if not goes over, let alone if you put it in, a double thing here where you're dealing with 2 of those sort of situations, right? But even more importantly, they do the same thing with the elite level wide receivers, right? So if you took Cooper Kupp and Stephon Diggs and you took their unders, right, which are obviously a little bit more aggressive numbers, it's that same type of thing with a 15x payout. Do not play those sort of cards. I could just tell you right now that little 5x payout is intriguing, but it's going to lose you your absolute hat if you go out there and try and bet it. So they added that sort of feature to it, but I'll just say I'm not the biggest fan because I think it's an absolute trap waiting to happen. It's a trap for the fish. Let's just say that. So let's see what we've got. I'm the 3rd pick. It's been a while since that happened. Of course, Nick is down there again. I could have told you that was going to happen. And is anybody else down there? You said, Yo came to say hello. What's going on? Breathing Fantasy Football. Hopefully you're doing well there. And hopefully, Nick, you're down there too. So this would be quite a bit of fun. I don't know if any of you out there are also in there. You could see a couple lurkers down there in the draft. But if you're there, make sure you go ahead and let us know. And with the 3rd pick, I mean, I haven't had the 3rd pick this year, I don't think. Or not that many times. At least it's been like 5 to 10 times at the very most. And it hasn't happened for quite some time. I'm assuming that JT and CMC get picked. But if they don't, this might be like one of the only chances that I have to get one of those running backs. So we'll have to see. Maybe somebody will be a little bit foolish and take a Cooper Kupp or Justin Jefferson. But hey, who knows? I can dream at least, right? We'll have to see. If not, it puts me in a position that I haven't been in that much. And I think I'm going to take Justin Jefferson. So we'll see. I'm okay with it. I love him this year, but I haven't drafted out of the 3-hole very often. Let's see what we've got. Christian McCaffrey, running back, Carolina. Okay. Come on. Don't pick Jonathan Taylor. Do something crazy. And he did. There you go. Like I said, I haven't had that much access to the first 2 picks just based on running under expectation out of those 2 slots. And I just got access to Jonathan Taylor there, which hasn't happened that often. So I'm going to take that every single time. And if you're running out of the 3 or 4, maybe especially 5 slot, or if they end up falling to there, pick them every single time. You have to. You're going to get access to different players earlier in the second round than you're used to. Definitely an advantage you want to hit there. You said was going to jump in. You did over 150 hours of live stream best ball drafts. Yeah, that's a lot, bro. You said no bullets in the flea flicker. Did max out the 3.5 mil. Yeah, I have 130 entries in the other one. So I didn't get 150 in. I was a little bit late to the party getting in my lineups, but I'm trying to add at least like 30 to 40 in here. So we'll have to see. And he said ninth. Damn it. Yeah, Nick, it's kind of a rough spot to draft in. But yeah, you still got Dalvin Cook there. Maybe he'll hold up. If he's still there, I would jump all over that, Nick. Yeah, I would take Dalvin Cook if I were you. He's like pretty much only one under expectation, but it's better than him getting drafted and being shafted with Stephon Diggs, who you might not hate this year, but like I hate Stephon Diggs this year. I think that last year was his true production level. Like, it's not like I hate the guy. It's not like I think that he's going to be a bad pick. He's still going to average like 18 and a half fantasy points, but I don't think he's going to put up 22, 23 plus fantasy points like some of these other round one wide receivers are going to. So, and just think that what we saw last year was indicative of his actual skill level. And you can see he's falling in this draft. Like, he went there at number 14. It makes sense to take him there. He's going to average 18 and a half fantasy points. That's still clearly a wide receiver 1 when it comes to fantasy production. But I don't see taking him in the top 8. That's the difference, right? It's a fade for me up to a certain point. I'll definitely draft him if he falls to like number 12, 13. Like, if I can get him on the turn. I've seen people take Jamar Chase and somebody like not Joe Mixon. Sorry, Jamar Chase and somebody like him there on the turn. Makes a lot of sense. So, yeah, we'll have to see. Let's see. You said you hang with you in this draft. Okay, you're going to do your 19th bullet. Yeah, have fun with that. I've done a few on Underdog too. I think I have like 170 drafts. I don't know how many I'm going to put in this flea flicker. I think I'm going to try and get up to the 150. So I think I need 19 because I had 131 over there in the main contest. And then I might cut it off there. Go over there to Underdog too. The thing I like about Underdog is that, first off, their contest sizing. I mean, they have a lot of the larger contests, a lot of the smaller contests too. In these contests, the ones that are a little bit more reasonable, where it's only like 25K to first, you're only dealing with like 35,000 entries, don't come out until the week of, right? Whereas Underdog has a lot of those out early. So I just respect their set a little bit more for that. We're going with our number 2 pick here, ideally at running back, but not a ton that I love on the board. So we'll have to see. If Javonte Williams goes, he didn't. I guess I got to pick him for sure. First off, a below expectation, and now he has a quarterback. And the thing is with Javonte Williams, he got better as the year went on. I mean, that was readily apparent. A lot of that was due to injury. A little bit more opportunity opened up for him, but also he earned more opportunity, right? He showed the team that he was capable of handling a larger load than at least expected for the first year player. The thing I like about him now is now he has Russ Wilson dealing with a much more effective offense. And if there's one thing that you've probably noticed from the players that I draft is I try to take players in good positions that are playing for effective, efficient offenses that have implied game totals that are a lot higher than, let's say, some of the lower tier teams. Like, just to give you an example, Kyle Pitts, I'm lower on this year than a lot of other people, and that's despite him being a generational talent. I think he's going to be unbelievable. In fact, I might actually draft him here. As much of shit that I'm talking about Kyle Pitts, but I project him a lot lower than some people just because I think Atlanta's going to struggle. I think you're going to see a lot of struggles there. So Deebo Samuel just went. I don't hate that pick, but I already have 2 strong running backs. So I don't see myself getting to a Fournette or somebody like a Nick Chubb. For me, it's between Pitts, Pittman, and Keenan Allen. And I'm going to be a little creative here. I'm going to take Keenan Allen. I'm going to knock him off the board right there. I think that he's a better receiver than Michael Pittman Jr., also in a more effective offense. And that is despite Indianapolis having a better situation this year than they had last with somebody like Matt Ryan at quarterback. But I really like Keenan Allen. I have a little bit of a feeling about him this year. I think he's going to surprise a few people out there. So we're going to take him there. Definitely need to load up on wide receiver now. And this is a range that I really like. I mean, Gabe Davis definitely is a little bit eye-popping. I mean, I took Juju last time. I like him this season. Allen Robinson the second. I talked about him a little bit during the Thursday night football video I put out. Definitely like him this year. Let's see what we've got. So Nick Chubb went a little late. I like that pick. So if you get Nick Chubb at like number 30, like he was just drafted, I think that makes quite a bit of sense. We had Mahomes go off the board. Okay. That's about appropriate. I'd say that's right around where I took him during the last draft. And let's see, did that guy end up going with some sort of stack is the question. I forget who that was. I think it was the Stomps guy. Yeah, he did. See, so he did a similar type of strategy, right? Where he started with Kelsey, then he took Swift, then he took Mahomes. I like that. He's thinking ahead. I like it. So let's see. I'm assuming that Nick's probably going to take Justin Herbert, try and stack him with Mike Williams, who he just took, which would make a lot of sense. He's at a draft position where that sort of thing is viable. So, he got it stolen from him, so he's not going to have that happen. But anytime you can get something where you're getting a late first round pick, you're going to be in the range where you can potentially go to that sort of Charger stack. The unfortunate thing is that people love drafting Herbert anyways, right? Like regardless of the stack, sometimes it's pretty hard to get there. You said you didn't like Keenan Allen Robinson ADP, got less than 2% exposure. Yeah, I'll disagree with you there. They're in offenses that I think are going to be extremely efficient, especially with Keenan Allen. I mean, he's a PPR machine. So anytime you get a full PPR league, I'm going to be all over Keenan Allen, especially compared to the guys around him. So yeah, I'll disagree with you there, especially with Allen Robinson the second. He's a wide receiver one talent on the LA Rams. And last year they showed that they can sustain two wide receivers at the same time, right? Robert Woods had an excellent year when he was actually healthy. And then you had Cooper Kupp putting up 28 points a game. I'm not that worried about it. I think he's going to post like 16 and a half points a game, which if you're taking him here in like, I don't know, 5th round, something like that, maybe the 6th round if he drops, probably the 5th round's a little bit more appropriate. I like it. So I have to disagree with you there, boss man. I'm not with you. I'm going to take Amon-Ra St. Brown, though I probably can get Allen Robinson the second time around. So if I can take both of them there, take 3 straight wide receivers, I do not hate that at all. A.J. Dillon, I'm not as high on as other people. I mean, he's going to get a lot of red zone production. But in terms of between the two red zones, middle of the field, you're going to see a lot more Aaron Jones than you're going to see of A.J. Dillon. And that's going to hamper a lot of his production, particularly because A.J. Dillon, though he can catch the ball out of the backfield, that's not his specialty. That's not what he's known for. He's known for being a power rusher, hitting between the tackles, and all of that passing production, if you're looking for those screens, that sort of thing, are going to go to the more shifty player, obviously. So that's what I'm thinking there. I don't hate Ezekiel Elliott, but I'm not taking him there. We already have 2 strong running backs, one that we can rely on literally every single week. We do have a decision to make between Brown, Judy, and Godwin, or taking Jalen Hurts. Ooh. This is a time where I don't have that much Jalen Hurts, and it's not that much of a stretch to take him. Yeah, I'm going to take Jalen Hurts here. So Jalen Hurts, very different system this year. So with the influx of talent at wide receiver, now they have A.J. Brown, they have Goddard, they obviously have Devonta Smith out there. Their O-line is pretty damn decent, especially from the pass blocking perspective. That whole offense, especially because their running backs aren't slouches either, should be a lot more efficient this year than we saw last. And based on all of the reports out of camp, it looks like they're a lot more passing heavy this year than what we saw last year. And the main reason why Jalen Hurts was just, I'll say, he's like a borderline elite level player last year, right? With some of the ceiling performances he was putting up from a fantasy perspective, at least like 22 fantasy points a game. That's like an elite level quarterback, right? And that's with a 60% rushing attack that Philly had last year. If that becomes even a neutral script, like 50-50, or what people are talking about, where it might be a 55-45 or even a 60-40 split between passing and rushing, he's just going to go off. Like he could potentially be your number 1 scoring fantasy quarterback. Not kidding. Could be Jalen Hurts this year. And I don't have that much exposure there. So we'll have to see. You take a lot of Gabe Davis. Yeah, I like that. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. I do like Gabe Davis, but that's usually when I have Josh Allen, because you still do have Stephon Diggs. I talked about Diggs, right? I'm talking shit about Diggs earlier. So I kind of agree with you there on Gabe Davis. Like, I like him a lot more. But Keenan Allen just, they're going to score more points than the Chargers this year. So I think there's something to that. At least they didn't last year, but I think they will this year. And you said Palmer's your highest earned play in all of your best ball drafts. Okay, interesting. So you're saying, okay, that's definitely not one of my top plays. I'm right around the field on Palmer, so I'm okay with it. And you're probably getting him with pretty good value too, because I've seen him fall in quite a few drafts. So, okay, I like it. If that's your highest owned play, I mean, sometimes it's going to be those value tier guys, but all of those like second, third round picks that I'm taking a lot more than most people. I mean, just to give you an idea here, if we go to this pick history, just to give you an idea, down here in the second round, I have an unbelievable amount of Mark Andrews. I have a lot more of him than the rest of the field. I have a lot, let's see, in the first round, I have a lot of Austin Eckler. I think I have like 20% Austin Eckler. I have, let's see, is right around like 20% Travis Kelce. There's definitely guys that are like my favorites this year that I have quite a bit of. It's not usually the guys down low. I'm a little bit more scattershot down there. I have a decent amount of Jalen Warren now, who I guess we'll talk about. I didn't end up drafting him in my other draft. I'm going to put him in my queue just so I don't forget about it here. Jalen Warren is the number 2 running back for the Steelers now. And I haven't seen that many people talking about it. It was just released the other day. Jalen Warren is past Snell. He passed the other running backs on the depth chart. And Najee Harris is reported to have some sort of injury at this point. So if you're dealing with that, Jalen Warren could very well end up being the starting running back for the Steelers at one point. And though they're not going to be a high efficiency offense, they're not going to be one of the better units around the NFL. You're still dealing with somebody that might get, let's say, 15, maybe 20 touches on the high side in a game there in like one of the last rounds. So I like that a lot. Just remember that there. We're not going to take them now, obviously. Pick 70. I don't hate taking another wide receiver. Lazard should be the wide receiver 1 over there in Green Bay with Devontae Adams' departure. I do like Hunter Renfrow, though, and I don't have enough of him. I guess the issue here is due to bye weeks, so I am going to take Lazard there. But if we didn't have another week 6 bye at wide receiver, so if we didn't already have Amon-Ra St. Brown, I probably would have taken Hunter Renfrow there, but I'm still okay taking him there. Let's see what we've got. You said, there's no way I see Mike Williams and Keenan Allen healthy all year. You could say that about everyone in the NFL, man. It's hard to guess injuries. I try not to do it. The only people that I really hold injury concerns against are guys that are chronically injured, which you can kind of say that for both of those players. So maybe that's what you're going with there. But even so, it's so hard to guess, man. I mean, injuries are just such a crapshoot in the NFL. There's guys that are made of glass like Saquon Barkley, who you could probably put in that same sort of boat. But what if they aren't injured, right? They're being drafted below their ADP. Then they smash and everyone's like shaking their head like, oh, why didn't I draft that guy? It happens every single year. So it's tough, right? You got to take stands. So clearly, right, play the guys that you like. But yeah, injuries for me are a hard one, boss. It's in any direction, positive or negative light when it comes to some of those injuries. So I try to just purely identify talent level, right? And I should say usage levels. If we know a player's talent, efficiency metrics, we know how much they're going to see the field. Those are the things that I project on. Assuming that they're only going to play like 13 out of 17 games, I can't do that, man. Right? I'm not going to be like, okay, let's project Barkley to play 13 and a half games, for example, right? Like how are we going to do that, right? So it's just, I don't factor it in. I hate to say it, boss. I can't do it, right? Because how are we going to guess that? DeAndre Hopkins, let's see what we've got. He got taken a little bit earlier than he should. You still have Mike Thomas there. We still have Hunter Renfrow there, almost inexplicably. But I also do like taking J.K. Dobbins. So it's a little bit of a decision, but I am going to take Renfrow. I would have taken him with my last draft pick. I'm going to do it here. We do have a slight issue with an overlapping bye week, but because I'm so deep at wide receiver from draft to draft, don't need to worry about it all that much. Let's see. Oh, I opened the wrong app down there. I meant to bring up the chat. He said, why no exposure tools to show your audience your takes? Honestly, because I don't have the plugins installed there and because it's on my Patreon. I don't really want to give all of YouTube all of my exposure levels. And I know that most people out there don't either. Like most other big streamers are not just giving away all of their information. That's the reason why, because it's behind the paywall. And I'll talk about a lot of my takes here if you ask questions and whatnot, but that's the reason why. Be honest with you. It's like that for golf too. Like I don't completely give away all my information for golf. I'm somebody who has a Patreon page, tries to protect the picks for everyone that's in there, but I'm more than willing to give my take on any player out there. Just ask, right? But it's not going to be out there for every single player so that people can screenshot it, for example, right? And then go in and use that to make their own exposure. Like that's not the idea. That's why like even on my spreadsheets, I censor a lot of it so that people can't do that sort of thing because it's happened. I've seen it before, that's for sure. I love the fact that you took Elijah Moore there, Nick. Got to look at your team, by the way. I've been kind of ignoring you there because you're not right after me, but I want to see who you're taking. You got a strong team, brother. I like where you're going there, dude. I guess there's a slight stack. because you do have Joe Burrow and Joe Mixon, but just in terms of like taking strong players, I like where you're at there. I think you're definitely on to something. My team's a little bit more hit or miss. I don't love Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I think that with the 4 wide receivers that I have, I can kind of play it by committee here. Let's see if we can add 1 or 2 more too and make it even better. And ideally, Nick's probably going to take Trey Lance here. He's a huge Niners fan, so it wouldn't surprise me if he went with Trey Lance. That's for sure. Set a reminder to snipe Boyd. Talking about it. By the way, this breathing fantasy football guy just seems like a slapdick, so I'm going to block you. This guy's like, drafting Keenan Allen is enough. I've seen enough. Yeah, dude, drafting Keenan Allen, you think is a slapdick move? Drafting the number 1 wide receiver in what is going to be the number 1 scoring offense of 2022. I think maybe you're the slapdick. That's maybe a hot take. Probably not a hot take, but I'll just leave it at that, buddy. For that breathing fantasy football guy that was out there. He seems like a little dickhead. He came into my stream like trying to like promote his stream like low key, which like I let go, which is like a huge no go, by the way, and beyond the content community. So I can tell he probably has a small channel. Like probably no one watches him because of that. He's trying to like promote his stream that way, like low key. I didn't want to call him out for it, but now that he like became rude, he's like, "Oh, you dropped a Keenan Allen, shows me everything I need to see." I'm gonna call you out for it. You're probably a slapdick. I don't even know who you are, which again probably speaks volumes. Let's go over here to tight end. We did have somebody fall to us. We have Hawkinson there, but I do have to consider some of the other guys around here. I had my eye on potentially taking a second quarterback, but it would be a little bit of fishing for me to take Aaron Rodgers at this point, especially considering that we have another draft pick just 4 later. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take the best player available, which is Hawkinson. I like him there. He does have another overlapping bye week. We have a potential stacking situation going on with Detroit too, where if we wanted to go out there and take Jared Goff, could make it a threesome, but we'll have to see. Not going to force it in. We already have Jalen Hurts at quarterback. But in terms of best player available and a need for our team, that checked both of those boxes. So we have 4 people in between us now. We'll have to see what's going on. He said LMAO bye. Yeah, dude. Some people like just they have such nerve, right? Like come into your stream promoting themselves. I know it was like low key, but like still like first off, scumbag move. And then come in here and try to talk shit about me picking Keenan Allen, try to be all sly about it. Like, get out of here. Just get out of here. You're slapdick. Like just you had multiple strikes in like 5 minutes of me meeting you. It's not a good move, not a good look. Marcus Valdez-Scantling actually I think is being underdrafted this year. Him and Mecole Hardman. I don't have a read on which one I think is going to be that breakout wide receiver, but whichever one ends up getting closer to 15 to maybe 18% of the receiving share, whoever that is, there's going to be, obviously Juju's going to have like 25%. You're going to have one wide receiver right around like that 15 to 18% mark, and then one that's probably closer to like 10 to 12%. Whoever that middle tier wide receiver is, which is either going to be a Scantling or a Mecole Hardman, at least early in the year. Sky Moore may change things later on. We'll talk about him later on. I want one of those 2 wide receivers, so we'll have to see. George Pickens, okay, decent pick there. Definitely a Steelers wide receiver. I have 0% exposure. I think I talked about that one a little bit earlier. I don't hate going with Cordell Patterson because this is PPR, but I did mention Aaron Rodgers, so I'm going to go ahead and take him. Now, I do expect that offense to be a lot less efficient this year than last year, but you're talking about the MVP candidate. Somebody who's going to be a first ballot Hall of Famer when he ends up putting the cleats up later on in his career. And as a backup, I love it, right? Like we're going to be using Jalen Hurts pretty much every single week. I talked about how last year, averaged nearly 22 fantasy points per game, should be even more efficient this year around. We're not going to need Aaron Rodgers all that often, but hey, if our second quarterback is going to be somebody who won the MVP, I mean, just like count me in, right? That's the kind of depth that I'm looking for. And at tight end, we are hurting a little bit. I'd say that's the one position that I don't feel thrilled with through the first 9 rounds, but we can make it work. There's a bunch of guys out there that I think are great targets. I mean, let's see. Zach Ertz, Pat Freiermuth, Albert O. Definitely have him in quite a few drafts. Actually, one of my higher exposed plays. I guess I probably should have mentioned that. A little bit closer to 20%. Sky Moore there for Kansas City. I like that pick. Was that Nick, by the way? No, he actually got picked just before Nick. But Cordell Patterson, good ADP selection there, good value. And I'm assuming at running back, you might have been a little bit, actually, you weren't thin. You had really good running backs, if I remember.
So yeah, he's a bench running back for you. That's a pretty solid pick, and you already have Elijah Mitchell. Nick's over here with a stacked team. He's just taking the best player available. He's not playing cute with this draft. He's just going out there and going, okay, bet this guy's dropping to me. I'm taking him. That's the move. If you want to make it to the playoffs, that's definitely the move. And if you can somehow backdoor a few stacks, like take some of those later round quarterbacks to pair up with some of those players, you might be in business there, Nick. So maybe that's a little bit of a hint for you there to go out there and do that. I said Njoku is your favorite late round target. I like hearing that, honestly. I mean, I haven't drafted much of them, but maybe I'll add them in a few drafts now. I like that quite a bit. And you were saying you were buying heaps of Pickens when his ADP was 175. Yeah, me too. Early in the year, I took a bunch of them. Now it doesn't make sense. Like, it's just way past it. Nick says, probably a Bengals fan. Yeah, that's what I'm going to blame it on. And he said, that's what happens when you pick ninth. Yeah, you end up just getting a bunch of really good players. And I mean, I wish you kind of could have gone that Herbert stack. I was kind of like holding out for you there, Nick, to be able to put that one together. If you get the ninth pick again, maybe you get that stack next time. And at that point, your lineup would just be absolutely insane. Because who's your quarterback right now? I guess I didn't really note that one. Joe Burrow, yeah, if you had Herbert in that lineup, you'd be in outstanding shape. Let's see. So we're hurting at tight end. I mentioned that one before. I don't love Cole Kmet. I kind of like Pat Freiermuth as a Steeler fan, so I'm probably going to draft him here, to be honest. If not, maybe somebody like a Mecole Hardman, who I mentioned might be the number 2 wide receiver for Kansas City, or Chase Claypool. We'll have to see. That whole number 2 wide receiver situation for Kansas City is so muddied. Like, it's really hard to tell who's going to get that second usage bump, whether it's going to be, MVS or somebody like Hardman, but we'll have to see. Let's make sure that he's top in our priority. Isaiah McKenzie went. He's healthy. He'll be there for week 1 for Thursday Night Football as well. So he's going to be mega chalk, and you're not going to be dealing with Khalil Shakur or somebody like, who's the other one? Jake Kumaro in the mix. They're not going to be the number 4 wide receiver. They'll be number 5 and 6 respectively. Oh, wow, somebody really fished and took Traylon Burks there. I'm going to take Pat Freiermuth. Again, we need a little bit of depth. He has a different bye week than TJ Hawkinson. And if I can get one more tight end over, let's say, the next like 3-4 rounds, I'm going to feel pretty decent about that position. And it was something that I was weak a few rounds ago. What I want to focus on now is best player available. And there are 2 wide receivers I want. I either want Claypool or Hardman here. I want one of them to fall to me. We have 3 picks between us, so we should ideally be able to get one of the 2. And if we can do so, I'll feel pretty solid about it. So let's see what's going on here. Claypool went. Okay. Less chance of that happening now. We'll have to see if they both get picked. Let's get a little bit of a backup going, which might be Carter, because we already have 2 really good running backs. Taking a chance on Carter, hoping that Breece Hall gets hurt, might not be the worst idea. Let's see what's going on. I ideally want Hardman. I'll just say that. Is this guy listening to the stream? I think he is. I think the guy's listening to the stream there. Just waits for me to say a name and then picks him. Let's see what Cork or Pow Pow goes with. Quite the name there. Honestly, I think if I was doing ADP pick here, just trying the best player available, I would have taken Rondale Moore. But thank God he leaves us with Mecole Hardman, who I was hoping for us to fall. Let's see what we've got. We got 5 wide receivers, 2 running backs, 2 quarterbacks, and 2 tight ends. Okay. I do need another running back at some point. I wouldn't have hated a few of these guys falling to us, but it's all right. Got a little bit skimped on somebody like Carter. Got skimped a little bit earlier. Guys like a James Cook, but it is what it is. Maybe somebody falls to us here in the next round or so. Let's see. Got Google down there. We got Robert says, you drafting 6. You got Eckler in the 1st, Williams in the 3rd, and Herbert in the 4th. Sheesh. You're drafting with some guys that are giving you some value. You got to love that, Robert. It was kind of like the draft I had last night that just absolutely went off. I'll show you guys what it looked like. I had another Patty Mahomes, Kelsey stack, but I also had like Derrick Henry with it, just absolute studs. So it was pretty nice. And Robert says, run back the LAC stack with Robinson in the 5th round for week 17 correlation. I love it. I'm doing a similar thing with the Kansas City. Now I can't remember who they're playing. I think it's Kansas City versus Chargers. Let's see. Let me go ahead and confirm that. Because anytime I try to run back correlation stacks, it's usually for some of the fringe teams. To do it for a team like the Kansas City Chiefs, I'm pretty sure it's the Chargers. It's like one of the harder buybacks that you can do. Let me see. No, it's the Broncos. Sorry, it's a good thing I checked that, so I didn't overdo it. It's the Broncos. So what I've done with some of those drafts is I've taken like a Jerry Jeudy. I've taken people like an Albert O, perhaps even Russell Wilson. Like I've actually gone with, in that draft specifically, the one I'm going to show you guys afterwards, I took Russell Wilson, Jerry Jeudy, and Albert O against the stack of Mahomes, Kelsey, Jude. I didn't have Juju in that one. I had Sky Moore and Mecole Hardman. I ran back the stack with an entire stack on the Broncos side. So that's set up to win the $1 million if we make it to week 17, which, again, if you've played best ball, I mean, you guys know is like a 1 in 100, 1 in 70 prospect, usually at the very best. Even if you're a really skilled drafter, that'd be insane. That'd be pretty sweet. He said, "Nice, man. Love to see it." Yeah, it'd be nice to have it. You said you memorized the week 17 schedule. Yeah, I don't. I didn't memorize it. I definitely check every time because like I have it for so many of the fringe teams, like the New York Jets, their week 16 opponent. I have a few buyback stacks on. I'm not going to remember that because I did it for week 16 too, because, you're going to get a bunch of lineups into the playoffs. You're going to have a few, a handful, 10, 15 that make it through the first round of the playoffs. Week 16 is pretty difficult too. Like I've had a little bit of trouble there over the years getting past week 16. So I've stacked a few of those too. So we do need a running back. There aren't that many at the top of the board. I mean, Isaiah Pacheco, not the worst pick. Honestly, at this point, I think I am going to take Pacheco. He's not my favorite player this year, but because he has upside to get the starting job if he outperforms Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who, of course, had a little bit more draft equity put into him with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but because they, turned around and also reinvested into Pacheco, he's going to get that similar type of look where if he's better than Clyde Edwards-Helaire, goes out there and is just a better player, he's going to start, right? Because they're both draft picks. It's not like he was brought in, they're emotionally invested into somebody like CEH. I like the upside there. I don't have a ton of them, but I like the upside. I'm in a few lineups. So we now have 3 running backs, 5 wide receivers. All right. This is a best player available type of situation where if Jeff Wilson, Jameis, this is such a shitty range. I guess the one that sticks out to me is that we could go with another tight end, which I mentioned taking a third tight end eventually. You do have Higbee sitting there, which also lies on a different bye week than our other 2 tight ends. So I'm going to go ahead and plug them in there. Run with a 3-headed monster there at tight end of Hawkinson, Freiermuth, and Tyler Higbee. 3 players that aren't going to post a ton of ceiling performances, but are going to go out there and be relatively consistent. So from week to week, I can pretty much count on like 14 plus fantasy points from the tight end position, which for getting into the playoffs is going to do us well. And perhaps a few of them have coinciding good weeks. We can use one at the flex. Not the worst position to be in. So we got to load up on wide receiver at this point. That is, of course, what I try to do. Garrett Wilson went. Okay. I think that whole Jets offense outside of the running backs are being underdrafted. I think that Breece Hall is going at least right where he should be, maybe if not a little bit earlier than he probably should be. But I love getting to Elijah Moore. I like getting to Garrett Wilson. And I mean, even Zach Wilson as a fringe, like QB3, I don't think it's the worst idea. Early on in the year, don't be relying on Zach Wilson to get you points. You want to make sure that you have a few solid options in front of you. But in this sort of lineup, right, where I already have Jalen Hurts and Aaron Rodgers, it'd be the perfect situation to try and take somebody like a Zach Wilson. So we'll have to see. He's actually questionable for week 1. So it's possible that he could return week 1. That's interesting. I think it's a lot earlier than people expected. So we'll keep an eye on the quarterback position. Don't have to do that anytime soon. We're only here in round 14. And Devontae Parker looking a little juicy up top. If I were Nick and he's still there, I would definitely be drafting Devontae Parker. David Njoku, I know Robert talked about him a little bit earlier. He's a potential pick. Parker just went. So I think I know who I'd take here. Logan Thomas? You took him over Njoku? I don't know. I don't know about that one. I think I'm with Robert on that one. I think I would have gone with Njoku there, but hey, it's still a good pick. Logan Thomas, I have like 15% of this year. He's up there towards the top of my exposure level. Yeah, Njoku went okay. Yeah, I definitely get the Njoku play, particularly if you're getting them below ADP. Then I think you're getting a good deal. We're at 166. No one wants to take Nico Collins. Poor guy. I mean, he was decent last year, right? Like, people forget that. At the end of the year, he was okay. I'm not playing him, that's for sure. So I'm glad someone else took him. I'm definitely not playing him. Now, there's a little bit of a buyback option I have here. So I don't know if I'm going to force it in. I'm not going to do so. We already have 3 tight ends. We don't need another quarterback. Ideally, I need another wide receiver. So why not go ahead and match up Sammy Watkins with Aaron Rodgers? And I know it's not a complete stack, but having that island out there can be a little bit helpful. We do have Alan Lazard too. So we have a little 3-man stack going. But if we could add one more, perhaps Tanyan there at tight end, might end up making it worth it. And I thought, oh, Tanyan just went, didn't he? Yeah, he did. That bastard went in the last round or two, didn't he? Or did he? Am I crazy? I might have just overlooked him. That's always the thing. No, he definitely went. But he went way earlier than he should have. Yeah, his ADP is 172, and he went way before that. Okay. Is what it is. Somebody reached on Tanyan for no reason. I obviously have Aaron Rodgers, so I don't really understand the whole going out there and doing that. But you do you. Whoever took Robert Tanyan. That's a interesting strategy, Chief. That's all I'll say. The only reason I was taking him is because he was going to be there in the stack. But interesting strategy. I don't hate KJ Hamler. If he falls to us, I'll take him. He's not a bad play at all. Jared Goff, yeah, I'm going to take Hamler. So Hamler is their number 3 wide receiver. They're in Denver, a little bit of a smaller target. May play out of the slot a little bit more than he does on the outside, but he's kind of known for the long playability. He's extremely fast. He's coming off of injury, so we got to worry about that a little bit, but explosive, or at least was before the injury. Could take that 5-yard screen pass, take it to the house for a touchdown. As Russell Wilson throwing him the ball, kind of similar build to a Tyler Lockett, if I had to give him a comp there on the NFL circuit. So I like that. If he's going to be the Tyler Lockett for somebody like a Russell Wilson, I mean, watch out, right? But probably not, lower tier player than Tyler Lockett for sure. But even if he's half of what Tyler Lockett is, having him as your wide receiver 7, I've seen a lot worse things happen. So I like that there. Let's see who LSU Nick takes. Took Evan Ingram. Okay. I like it. I like Trevor Lawrence a whole lot this year, who has already been drafted at this point, but did you take him is the question. Because if you did, I like that even more. Let's see. So you have Joe Burrow as your starting quarterback. Ryan Tannehill as your back. So you're not going for a stack there, but I still like the pick. I think he's a great tight end. And you're kind of going with the tight end by committee as well, because you have Hurst as your starting tight end, and then you have Logan Thomas and Ingram. Okay. I think that if there's one position to punt and play in that sort of method, it is tight end. You can clearly see, because I'm doing it too, right? I mean, Hawkinson isn't a punt, right? He's still a pretty decent tight end, but it's not like our other positions where we have elite level talents at pretty much every spot. We're in round 16 now. Got to be a little bit more creative at this point. Can't be just trying to take best player available. I mean, if you can, right? If there's nobody that's really sticking out to you, but I do think that you want to try and take guys to complete stacks at this point. Also consider taking players that you don't have exposure to, right? That maybe to differentiate yourself, reach on somebody. So in terms of what I'm looking at, I do have Amon-Ra St. Brown. I do have Tyler Hawkinson. Somebody did take Jared Goff from me a few picks ago, which I'm not that worried about because I already have 2 really stud quarterbacks. Let's see, where was he drafted? Yeah, last round. Yeah, like it doesn't worry me all that much. I'm okay with perhaps taking Mac Jones. I really like him this year. Maybe somebody like Daniel Jones. The 2 Jones brothers aren't the worst ideas. And then trying to work in a stack with just the wide receivers from the Lions team, right? So taking Jamison Williams there, and then perhaps running it back. So we'll have to see. There's Daniel Jones off the board. Okay. Had to expect that to happen soon. Let's see. He took Van Jefferson. You took him in the last draft too, Nick. I think you're taking a lot of Van Jefferson this year. It seems like it at least. Robert says, don't forget Quez Watkins. I'm going to make sure I don't forget him. Because I love Quez Watkins this year. And yes, I love him as my last round pick. Thank you, Robert, giving me those little tips. I love that. Or maybe Pascal for Slapdick snipes him from you. Yeah, I'll remember Pascal, but hopefully we can get Quez Watkins. I like Watkins a little bit more personally. Austin Hooper just went. Okay, so we can take Mac Jones. I think I'm going to go with it. I talked about Jamison Williams, and again, I got sniped on it. I was assuming that this guy's down here in chat. Let's go ahead and take him with our 16th pick. Still fine with that. I think it's fine. 3 quarterbacks now that I feel really good about. And the thing with Mac Jones is it's a little bit of a speculative pick. I legitimately think that Mac Jones might be a stud this year, like a top 15 quarterback is what I would classify as a stud, borderline quarterback 2 action for a best ball like this. And he's being drafted like 25th, 26th in terms of quarterbacks. So I think you're getting like 10 spots of value there, right? So it's not like he's a stud, he's a top 5 quarterback, right? That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying in terms of value, he's an absolute stud. So I like that. Let's see what else we got down in chat and catch up. Robert says, DK just threw you 15 $5 milli tickets for maxing the best ball. Damn, I only got 131 in. That's unfortunate. And Nick says, tiny Cincy stack. Yeah, I saw that. I like the fact that you have Joe Burrow, then you went to somebody like Mixon, and I forget who else he mixed in, but another one there. We do have Damian Williams off the board. It's round 17. I'm going to take Jaylen Warren. So this is where I think he should start being drafted. So Warren, I talked about it earlier. He is now the backup running back for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He's number 2 on the depth chart. He was an undrafted free agent coming into the year. Nobody knew about him, including myself, and he was unbelievably productive. Now, the thing is, Najee Harris is going to get like 90% of the workload, right? So it's not going to be like a dual-headed attack where Warren is starting to earn some of the workload. Harris definitely has to get injured for him to pay off. But if that happens, I mean, you're talking about somebody you're drafting in like the 17th round. You could be the equivalent of last year's Jeff Wilson Jr., last year's equivalent of Chuba Hubbard, for example, who posts a really solid year there from one of the last round picks. So I'm going to take him early. He's going to be like a 17th, 18th round pick for me. Whereas in other drafts, even over the last few days, you could take him in round 19, round 20. I think he needs to be going earlier. At least I'm going to. I'm going to make sure I lock him in because I think he's one of the best picks on the board at that point. At this, we have 4 running backs. We do need a few more wide receivers. That's definitely becoming apparent to me. So we'll have to see how that goes. Let's see who LSU Nick takes. He's thinking about it a little bit. Okay. Jonnu Smith. Okay, I like it. He's a pretty solid target at tight end. I mentioned him in the last draft, right? I took him there. He's not going to post you ceiling performances, but he's going to get you like 12, 13 points, let's say like 7 to 8 times a year. So I like that quite a bit. Ben and Brown up now. We have 4 picks until we're up. I'm not going to take Quez Watkins yet. He's probably going to be one of our last draft picks there. But in terms of this pick, I have a lot of Curtis Samuel. I take him a lot in the 18th, 19th round. So I'm probably going to avoid Curtis Samuel here. Paris Campbell, I don't have a lot of. So I may consider taking him. We're not taking another quarterback. We're set there. So we don't need Kenny Pickett. Running backs, we're probably set too, especially because we have Jonathan Taylor up top. So I don't know. We're probably going to take just the best wide receiver available, which there's not a ton of them to be had here. But again, Campbell, Curtis Samuel are there. We could even take Kendrick Bourne because we have Mac Jones. Wouldn't be the worst idea. But let's see what we get dealt to us here, or even Laviska Shenault. There's a lot of guys that I like here. So Mariota went. I'm going to go ahead and take Shenault. I really think that he has a breakout year here. A lot of that is not only tied to his improvement in progression as a player, but more importantly, the progression of the offense and Trevor Lawrence as a pass thrower. So I like Shenault. I think that his offensive and his production in general is almost completely tied to what you have there at quarterback. So Shenault's off the board. Next up, we're going to try and take another one of these wide receivers. And then hopefully in the last round, maybe take Quez Watkins. To wrap around up, because we have 4 running backs I feel good about, 3 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends. That is more than enough depth. This should be a pretty good lineup here. I feel pretty decent about this best ball draft's chances. And I don't like Amon-Ra St. Brown. That's like the one pick here I almost wish that I didn't make. But we do have a little bit of a Detroit stack, I guess. which is going our direction. So Zach Moss is off the board. Keep taking those running backs, boys. That'll do us a lot of favors in terms of what we want to draft. Okay, tight end. That's also good for us. Come on, take just non-wide receivers. Come on. Give us all that value in this last round. Quez Watkins had some crazy games last year, like 19 points, 9 points, 16 points. I mean, even like these 7-9 point performances, like they're decent, right? Like in best ball, that might save you in a few spots. So I like that there. We're going to take, I would normally take Curtis Samuel here. I want to make that as clear as humanly possible for anybody that's watching, especially on replay. I'm taking Kendrick Bourne mostly because I have Mac Jones here. It's a little bit of a mini stack that you can make, but also because I have so much Curtis Samuel already. Like he's in a ridiculous amount of my lineups. So I don't feel a need to overdo that there. And ideally, now in the last round, we're going to have to wait, what is it, like 17 picks? We can get Quez Watkins. He might end up getting sniped from us, which would be okay because there's a lot of other guys we can take. Who are you saying is the other one? Maybe Pascal? Has Pascal been picked is the question. No, and he's probably not going to get picked. So I'll put him on there in case too. We're going to take one of those two. Hopefully Quez Watkins, because I like Watkins a little bit more. And let's see who Nick takes. I don't even know who that is. Danny Gray? Who is that? Rookie wide receiver has to be, right? Okay. Noted now. Now I know who Danny Gray is. Yeah, I didn't know who that was, Nick. Like, not even joking around. He's is he like your fifth string wide receiver over there? I mean, you could definitely see the field. I mean, that's for sure. I just literally never heard of him before. I haven't seen him drafted very often either. So maybe I need to, because if he's going to see the field with Trey Lance, and I'm sure he's getting a lot of reps in with Lance because Lance was getting some backup run for a little bit, was getting some work with the second teamers early on. I'm sure it's worth a few darts. There's a reason why you're taking him, Nick. You know your shit. You said you didn't snipe your pick. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, no Quez Watkins. I appreciate it. Hey, you have one more pick ahead of me, right? So you might still do it. Hopefully you don't. I appreciate it if you don't, because it's for some bullshit stack, right? So it's not even it's not even like we're going for some full stack here. So if you do, it's fine. I'm not going to be that worried about it. Let's just say that it's okay if you do. Kyle Juszczyk, bruh. Okay, people are getting creative here. I mean, I get it. You got to be creative, so I shouldn't really bash it. But Juszczyk, I mean, I don't see that man drafted like ever out here. Like, I mean, he's going to get you that 10-point game every once in a while. Supposedly, him and Lance have chemistry. Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought might be the thing. That's kind of why I was throwing it back to you to get your thoughts there. Was that Carson Wentz you took or no? So you took Curtis Samuel. Okay, I like Curtis Samuel. Marcus Robinson. Okay, 3 picks. Come on. Quez Watkins or Pascal? Trubisky, he's going to be starting like 2 weeks. It's probably a waste of a draft pick. I'll say that, by the way. Pickett's going to be starting by like week 4. Like just almost 100%. See if we can get Quez here. That would be ideal. Boom. There we go. All right. So that draft I feel pretty decent about. Now, we got sniped a little bit early on a few plays, but that's just going to happen. Overall, it's a very balanced build. We were able to get Jonathan Taylor out of the 3 spot. So I like that. I love our second round draft pick in Javonte Williams. Took him a few picks below ADP. So I'd say a little bit of value with our first 2 draft picks. But across the board, a lot of guys that fell into our lap. I mean, overall, Jalen Hurts, I think, is going to be a top 5 quarterback. I got him right at ADP, which I think makes sense. We were able to take a lot of guys in this mid-tier range that fell to us, like an Aaron Rodgers, Pat Freiermuth, just a lot of value across the board. And we have a little bit of a Kansas City stack. You may have noticed the Aaron Rodgers stack we definitely have with Lazard. We're able to take guys like a Sammy Watkins as well. By the way, Jaylen Warren, this is like the 5th time I'm saying this. This is like important that everyone should know this. You should be taking this guy in almost every best ball draft that you're drafting right now, because his ADP is going to soar. And when it does, people are going to start drafting him there in like rounds like 13, 14. because he's the backup running back for the Steelers now. You can see this now. It's now on ESPN. It's now on Draftkings. So now everyone's going to start to get this information. He's listed as the number 2 running back. So just note that, right? I told everyone down in Patreon this morning because, again, I'm a Steeler fan, right? I see all that sort of stuff when it comes out, and jumped on that ball early. I've done like 6 or 7 best ball drafts today, and he's in pretty much every single one that I've done. Let's do one more draft. Then we're going to hop on out of here. Hopefully this one takes around 45 minutes. It'll put us right on our timer. And during this, we're going to talk about the main slate. So I talked about the Isaiah McKenzie injury, who honestly is not on the injury report anymore. So I guess I shouldn't call it his injury. He's good to go. He's going to be in the lineups. That takes away some of the cheaper wide receiver options for Buffalo. Perhaps like getting to, it's Jake Kumaro. Also, I believe it's Khalil Shakur, who's down here. Yeah, Khalil Shakur here at $200. Those 2 guys are not going to be in play because McKenzie is playing. It also takes $5,000 Jamison Crowder also out of play. So, that injury news isn't the best, but Van Jefferson Jr. did not practice on Monday. That means that first off, they're going to rely heavily on their top 2 wide receivers, Cooper Kupp, also Allen Robinson II, but more so, their number 3 wide receiver is up for grabs. You're going to have Tutu Atwell, who may play, Ben Skoranek, who's very likely to get a bunch of snaps in there as a wide receiver 3. These 2 guys are your potential sources of value. And I talked about during my video earlier, but I really like $400 Tommy Sweeney. You also have Cook down there at $2,800, $3,000 Zach Moss. You can make your lineups work, right? It's not impossible to go out there and draft a lineup with some value, but you got to hopefully, right, if Van Jefferson ends up sitting, like, and again, I don't want him to sit. I don't want him to be injured. End up getting a little bit of extra value. But while we wait for this to fill here, we'll go over to the main slate now. So for the main slate, I just want to talk about some of the stacks or game environments that I like the best. Nick's like, I'll do another. Yeah, so you're going to hop in there too. Okay, I love it. He said the stupid SF podcasts you listen to are worse than Hard Knocks. You said you would prefer Jennings. Yeah, dude, I don't know. I don't pretend to know about teams like 4th, 5th string wide receivers. I'll know about them like 2 weeks into the season, right? If any of them start to get run or exposure or usage, I'll be able to factor that in. But yeah, man, like I'm not going to listen to those beat reporters for those other teams. It's just, you guys let me know about guys like Jennings. Let me know about guys like Danny Gray or whatever his name was. I'm not going to have any idea. I'm not going to pretend to know either, right? In DFS, this main slate, for example, that we're going to talk about here for a second, you don't have to know about it. Like really, it doesn't matter, right? You can go out there, just every player that you're taking, you have a very good idea who they are. You understand their usage rates pretty much going into the year, because the cheapest players that you're taking are going to be, down here. Like, let's see, at quarterback, there's actually a few cheap quarterbacks you can take. One of them, first off, way cheaper than he should be. Where is Jalen Hurts? I'm just going to type him in here. Jalen Hurts is way cheaper than he should be this week. You can see he's $6,800. And then you have Daniel Jones, too. Daniel Jones is $5,000. You're going to see a ton of people play those quarterbacks. A lot of it is due to matchups, too. You can see Jalen Hurts is playing Detroit, which should be a plus matchup. But then on the flip side, I think Daniel Jones is also in a plus matchup. Let's see. At $5,000, he's playing against Tennessee. So, yeah, they were 24th against the pass last year. There's going to be some mega chalk at quarterback. So it is what it is. I'm probably going to end up playing both of them, because anytime you take those stacks, there's ways to get a little bit different within the stack. So even though the Eagles stack, the Giants stack, for example, should be relatively popular because people are trying to jam in some of those higher tier options at running back, also some of the wide receiver ones like a Justin Jefferson. Actually, is Justin Jefferson even on the slate? He is. Okay. $7,800. They're going to try and jam in a lot of these top end guys. So at quarterback, I expect people to go a little bit cheaper. Guys like Mahomes, Herbert, for example, that still have really good matchups, to maybe be a little bit lower owned. So we'll talk about that. I'll be doing a video either later on tonight or tomorrow morning, not sure on the timing of it, talking about my favorite 4 plays at every position. They're going to be pivots. They're not going to be like the super chalk at every position, right? But we're going to talk about the chalk to give you an idea of why I like those players. And I can just tell you that right now, Patty Mahomes and Justin Herbert are both really likely to be on that list just because of their, I think they're going to be lower owned than they should be. And they still have legit quarterback one upside this week, right? Putting up 30 fantasy points. Sure, getting to Hurts because he's cheaper than he should be feels really nice. Getting to somebody at $5,000 like a Daniel Jones feels really nice, but it's they also still have to go out there and perform. They can't go out there and post 18 fantasy points and you think that you're going to win the GPP that week, right? You're probably going to need a little bit better than that. We have the number 2 spot. It looks like Nick is not in our draft. Okay. So you might have mixed out this time, or you didn't end up entering. Either way, Nick, it was a really chill drafting with you. This time, I don't have to worry about giving away my picks. So that's kind of nice. But it's, again, was nice draft with you. But it is nice now that I don't have to hide it nearly as much. But in terms of this main slate stuff, which we're going to get back to the draft here in a second, we're taking CMC if he's there. If not, we're taking Jonathan Taylor. Really simple for us at the number 2 slot. So we don't have to think about it too much. I'm actually just going to go ahead and queue them. So if I don't end up getting back to it, it drafts who I want. But in terms of our running backs for this week, for week 1, a ton of people are going to play Jonathan Taylor. People are going to try and jam in somebody like Derrick Henry, right? Who's the favorite against the Giants. They're, at home, for example. So he gets that sort of bump. You're going to try and jam in these players. So that's why you're going to get all the people punting to Daniel Jones at quarterback, a few other of the cheaper quarterbacks. You're going to see people punt at tight end. So rather than taking these elite level players like a Kelsey or an Andrews, you're going to see them try and take some of these $3,800 Hunter Henry, for example, there in week 1 to try and get as many of these studs as possible, right? Maybe take one of the 2 elite tier running backs, try and take an elite tier wide receiver. And I think a lot of people are going to go that direction. So yeah, I got to take Jonathan Taylor there. I don't want to get put on auto pick. But the way to get different this week, right? And it all depends on your contest selection. If you're playing in a 2 to 3 max, a single entry, I'm perfectly fine taking that chalk approach, right? Like I said, you can get different within the stack. Maybe just take, instead of the number 1 wide receiver, you take number 2 and 3 or that sort of thing. Or maybe perhaps instead of taking, both the chalk wide receiver and the chalk tight end that you have available, you just take one of the 2, right? Just slightly differentiate your lineup. You can do that. Or what I would do in a large field GPP, and this is what I think most people out there will be playing for week 1, myself included, I'll definitely be in the large field GPPs too, is to take the opposite approach, to stack with an expensive quarterback, right? To maybe take the Mahomes or Herbert that I talked about before. Maybe even Lamar Jackson, who's going to have so much of his production funneled through Mark Andrews, who I think if you're playing Lamar Jackson, you almost have to play Mark Andrews too. Just those sort of plays are going to be way underrepresented for round 1, for week 1. You're going to have a lot of those value options taken at quarterback, and it's going to dictate their stacking because almost everyone stacks at this point, right? There was a day and age with NFL DFS where stacking was, in the minority. Not that many people did it. Now more people stack than don't, right? It's become a completely different environment out there with the large field GPPs. That's what I worry about, that these guys, these teams in general are underrepresented. When you have a banger of a game between Kansas City and Arizona, you have an absolute banger of a game between Las Vegas and LA. You also have a banger of a game between Green Bay and Minnesota. That's almost always one of the higher scoring games of the year. Just game environments that I want to make sure that I'm getting a little bit of exposure to. So that's how you can get different for large field GPPs, is just fading those chalk stacks. And with Jalen Hurts, there's a ton of opportunity cost there. Again, I think he's going to be one of the better quarterbacks for week 1. But if you're in those large field contests, I think you should consider it, especially for week 1 where we have so much variance. I love a lot of the elite tier running backs. Really nothing bad to say there. We'll talk about it in a lot more detail when we do the videos. Elite tier wide receivers, I love them too, but I don't love them to the point where I'm going to force myself to a value build at tight end and quarterback, right? I'm not going to force myself into that just because I like those players that much, because the fact of the matter is there's still a lot of these 6K options that are going to absolutely go off. Like wide receiver 1, Deontay Johnson might have a really good week. Obviously needs to play for that to happen. AJ Brown, I'd argue that he's a great pick even on an island without taking him with Jalen Hurts, because most of the guys that start with Jalen Hurts are also going to take AJ Brown, or start with somebody like Devonta Smith, who Devonta Smith is down here at $5,500. If you want to get different, right? Maybe just play Devonta Smith. Maybe just go out there and play AJ Brown, right? Rather than going with the combination. You'd be surprised how little people end up playing those sort of wide receivers on their own, and just rely on their optimizer to force them into lineups because they have a rule set that anytime they play Jalen Hurts, it also plays 1 or 2 wide receivers or tight ends from that team, right? That's the role that everyone is using for their optimizers. Way to get different is just to play one of those guys that's only being paired with the quarterbacks on their own, like as an island. It's a really good way to get that exposure. So we're coming up here soon. We were able to take Jonathan Taylor early. That is the 2nd draft in a row that we were able to do so. So a little bit of a good luck here on stream. I'll definitely have to take it. In terms of my next running back, which ideally I do want a running back here, a few targets. So ideally 2 that I really like. I'm not going to star them. I don't want to jinx myself at all. We'll see if they end up falling to us. But Aaron Jones, Javonte Williams, definitely like them a whole lot. But if we end up getting sniped and both of them go off the board, which one of them already has, which is looking more and more likely, we're probably going to Mark Andrews. I mean, I'm drafting him a lot higher than most people. I really like his chances this year. We do have a chance at getting Williams, though. We'll have to see. He got picked right before us, is what it is. That's going to happen from time to time, but we're still left with pretty solid players in terms of ADP. I talked about Andrews before. He's definitely in contention. I'm not a huge believer in Tyreek Hill this year. So for me, I don't want to force myself down to taking like a Deebo Samuel, who I do like. Perhaps, yeah, the clear option for me here is to take the guy that I'm drafting a ton this year, right? I have nearly 20% Mark Andrews, and a lot of that is due to his usage rate. I'm expecting him to get an unbelievable amount of targets. Because there's no more Marquise Brown, you do have Rashad Bateman there, who's going to see an increased usage bump, but also Mark Andrews. Mark Andrews, even from his crazy usage rate in there in 2021, should see even more targets. Now we're down here at 26, and Tyreek Hill is still there. Now, my exposure to Tyreek Hill is almost non-existent. I don't have very much. I'm only going to take him in this sort of circumstance where I have 2 really stud players that I like up top. I ideally kind of wanted another running back, but my options were a little bit limited there, right? I would have had to go down, take a James Conner, maybe even go down a little bit further and take an Etienne, which would be definitely drafting well below ADP. Instead, just go with Tyreek Hill, right? I don't love him this year, but if we're getting him near the half round, a whole round later than he should be going, then I'm going to have to jump on board. That's just value that I can't pass up, especially considering that last year, he averaged 19 points a game. He was a top 10 wide receiver, still had those 35-point performances, though he had a few dud performances, like in the playoffs, 1.2 points, 3.9 points in week 16, for example. Still had plenty of the really good performances, right? Like 50 points. I know he had Mahomes as a quarterback, 2 as a clear downgrade. Should still put up some pretty respectable performances. So I like that. Let's see what we've got. A few questions down there. Oh, I'm way behind. My bad, boys. You said, wish I wasn't maxed so you could jump in. Yeah, that's the unfortunate part. This is the new contest. Did you max the second one? Or is it just the 150 max in general? I'm not sure how they do that. Nick Mars says, yeah, I think Henderson Akers will be valuable with wide receiver depth. I think that Akers will be pretty decent. I'm not so sure about Henderson. That Kyron Williams kid that they drafted, the word on the street is that they plan on using him as a backup, that they have a lot more interest in him being the backup than somebody like Henderson. So I think early in the year, Henderson is still going to get quite a bit of attention. But later as the year goes on, I think that Williams might start to eat into that a little bit. So I like Akers, but I don't really like Henderson as much. And it's not like I love Kyron Williams either. It's not like I'm drafting him in my drafts, but I do think that could be an issue for him. He said, we're in different drafts. You hit yours too quick. Oh, that's unfortunate. And you got Henry in Barkley. It's not a bad start. I like Barkley. I've talked about that a little bit. And Super Saiyan says, I got T. Higgins and Judy as your wide receivers 1 and 2. You have Devontae Smith, Patterson, Bryce Hall, and Olave. Who should you flex? So I'm assuming you're talking about for a year-long league. Let's see. So for me, it comes down to matchups. I mean, Devonta Smith has a pretty cupcake matchup against the Lions. Patterson's dealing with a very average matchup. Bryce Hall's against a relatively tough matchup. Personally, I'd probably go with Devonta Smith just because of the matchup concerns. They're going to be in a positive game script. I expect them to do a lot of scoring there against Detroit. So I would take him. I think people are underprojecting the whole Eagles offense, to be frank with you. I think they're going to surprise a lot of people. And I wasn't as high on them to start the offseason, but after they got A.J. Brown, after they committed, at least from what I can see during the preseason, to going to more of a pass-heavy approach, that's what I thought they were lacking, right? Was that number 1 wide receiver and then actually having proper play calling. And now they have it. So hey, if they fixed what I was bitching about for quite some time, I have to be in on it, right? Like if they finally did what I expected them to do, they should go out there and succeed, at least if I'm correct. So I would go with Smith there. I'm really high on their chances all season, especially against the Detroit Lions. Kent picked T. Higgins. Okay. I like him. I think he's a wide receiver 2 on a high potent offense, which I always like to see. We're here in, 5 draft picks until us. We definitely need a wide receiver, and we're going to have some to choose from. So I'm liking that for us. People are taking quarterbacks a little bit early, which is fine. I wouldn't have actually hated to have Lamar, but I'm not going to reach on him. That's for sure. I'm not going to take him there at the beginning of the 4th round. He's more of like a 5th, maybe 6th round draft pick if he'll fall to you. How 47? I wouldn't hate having like a Jalen Waddle, just because we do have Tyreek Hill. If we want to make a little Miami stack, that could be a thing. I don't have any Miami stacks. It'd actually be a first for me, so we'll have to see. Just because I hate Tyreek Hill. Like I have not drafted him very often this year. So as a result, don't have many of those Miami stacks. But we'll see. Maybe we do. Damian Pierce. Okay. He's going to be a running back 1 for a bad team. So he's definitely in volatility land. Not really sure what's going to happen there. Gabe Davis is off the board. Had to expect that to happen sooner rather than later. I'd expect Zeke to go in the next few picks and also Waddle to go in the next few picks. So let's see what ends up happening there. I do need a wide receiver. Took Terry McLaurin. I'm definitely going to take Waddle then. So if you're handing me a Miami Dolphins stack and telling me to take it, I guess I got to listen there. And that means that for Mr. Tua down there at 121, we're probably going to have to take him at right around round 9. So here in 5 rounds, we'll go ahead and take Tua. But for now, we can worry about best player available, which is yet again going to be another pass catching threat. I may take George Kittle if he's still there, and that is despite already having Mark Andrews. But there's a reason I'm willing to do this, so I'll talk about it. So I'm going to take the 2 tight end strategy. When we have the flex there, right, we can still play these 2 tight ends together. And I'm counting on having 7 or 8 wide receivers, so I'm going to have some ceiling performances there. But if I'm going to get a consistent 18 points from these 2 tight ends, if not closer to 20 from Mark Andrews from week to week, why wouldn't I bank those in? Like I just got George Kittle at lower than ADP, somebody who I think is still going to have a great year regardless of quarterback, whether it's Jimmy Garoppolo or Trey Lance. I think with Trey Lance, he could have a relatively epic year, let alone above average with Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm all for it. So I'm definitely going to take him there. Where you have 2 week 11 bye weeks because of that whole Dolphin situation, which obviously we might have to take a few extra wide receivers because of it, but that's okay. Our next pick isn't for another 15. So let's go ahead and figure out who a few potential targets might be. If we end up having Rashad Bateman drop to us, I'm not against it. I like him this year. Same thing with somebody like a DK Metcalf. So I'm going to go ahead, star those 2. Well, remember Bateman, he'll probably be there at tight end. Well, we're not going to take another tight end. Might end up taking a running back, right? We only have 1 to this point. I don't hate Cam Akers. We took him in our other draft. I've been taking him quite a bit. AJ Dillon, he's already below ADP. If he's still there, I'm going to have consider it. He's not my favorite pick this year, but he's usually gone by now. He's a relatively popular pick here in 2022. So that's a little bit surprising to me. Somebody took Thielen early. That's also extremely surprising. Somebody just drafted Thielen a solid 2 rounds above ADP. There goes Jerry Jeudy. Okay. Somebody's got to take AJ Dillon here soon. Right? I'm not up for 11 picks. There's 0 shot I'm going to get him. But somebody's going to get AJ Dillon for a pretty price there. And I have to say I'm a little bit jealous. Let's see what we've got. We have Nick says I was talking about for Thursday. Okay, I gotcha. Let's see. So your question was, do you think it'll be valuable with wide receiver depth? Not Henderson. I don't think Henderson's my favorite pick for Showdown. Akers, on the other hand, I think has upside. I think he'll be relatively low owned. And by low owned, I don't mean he's going to be like single digit or like 15, 20%. I think it'll be like 30, maybe 35% owned, something around there come Thursday. And if that's the case, I'm going to be at least at the field on Cam Akers, maybe closer to 50%. I might have like 15% leverage there because I think he has utility to get to the optimal lineup, particularly with how much the Rams like to run the ball when they're playing well. But, and this is the major but, he's still so volatile, right? We don't know how much usage he's going to see because of the injury. It's tough. So I like him. I'm definitely going to have over the field on somebody like a Cam Akers. Probably one on Darrell Henderson, though. I'm going over the field on Kyren Williams. Just because it is week 1, we have no idea how the usage is going to come out. And Kyren Williams is like $1,400. So I'd rather go that direction. I'm going to take Tommy Sweeney. I'm going to take Tutu Atwell. Going to take a few of the quarterbacks, right? I'm probably going to have both quarterbacks in at least half my lineups and fill in with some of those middle tier options. So I don't know. I play 150 lineups, so it's hard for me to like really say like when I really like a player. But if I'm playing at least 50%, that's usually pretty indicative of somebody that's a core pick for me. So I guess yeah, Cam Akers a core pick. Henderson would not be. What else do we have? We have Super Saiyan says, what about Olave against the Falcons? But I'm also leaning towards Devontae. I'd probably still lean towards Devontae. Olave, I only worry about him being behind Landry and, well, I guess Thomas probably not playing week 1. I say probably, right? He's still questionable. If Thomas is out, then yeah, maybe Olave is a little bit more viable, but I would still slightly lean towards DeMonte. But yeah, dude, it's closed. He's got a new sub here. Absolutely. Of course. That's what I'm here for. Love to have you on board. Ryan says, would you trade Jamar for JJ in Dynasty full PPR? Yes. Yes, absolutely. I'd rather have Justin Jefferson. It's not only in terms of talent level, where I think Justin Jefferson is better than Jamar Chase. He's also in a better game environment, better team. That team is so concentrated with its offense. That's probably going to sustain for quite some time. We're here at pick 71. We do need a few wide receivers, potentially need a running back too. This is where I like taking Dobbins. I had my side eye on him for quite some time. I think he's going to be back by week 2 or 3. And if that's the case, we're dealing with a fringe RB1 that I'm getting here in round 6, which is great value. That's what we're looking for. But it has that risk factor to it. But because this is a $5 best ball entry, and frankly, if he burns my $5 entry, I'm not really sweating it twice. I'm okay with it because he brings all that upside to the table, right? It's a lot more about what goes right when we take J.K. Dobbins than what happens if it goes wrong, right? You're going to have burned lineups. You're not going to win in every best ball that you have. You got to be willing to live with that a little bit. So we have 2 running backs. I do need another one, but I love some of the wide receiver talent that we have here. In terms of stacking options, we don't really have them at quarterback, so there's no sort of quarterback that I'm forcing in here. So it's either going to be Lazard, Renfro, or Kirk to me. I don't have that much exposure to Renfro. Talked about it before. Another reason why I took him in one of our previous drafts. So I'm going to get to him once again. If any of these, especially because it's a last second draft, right? We're here a few days before the season starts. I try to get to guys like Renfro when I can, just because I understand that I don't have enough exposure to them, right? I have to get it out in the next day and a half, something like that. And if they're going to be there right at ADP, I'm going to select them over Lazard, who I'm already over the field on, right? I already feel pretty solid about his projections. Now I might, like last draft, take Lazard, right? I still took him in last draft because we were looking for one of those Green Bay stacks, but I'm not going to force it in. So I like what we're doing here. Let's see, what do we got down there? A few questions. You think Baker's going off? I like that. I think he's going to have a decent year. I think that DJ Moore is going to post similar numbers to last year, if not slightly better. So I think he's a pretty decent draft pick. Robbie Anderson might be worth a few looks because I think his quality of QB play is definitely going to go up under Baker Mayfield. And CMC, the reason why I'm taking him a lot with the first overall draft pick is I think he really gets a huge bump due to Baker Mayfield too. So I agree with you there. I think he'll be a lot better than people expect. Nick says, you thinking they might run more with Stafford off injury? I don't necessarily agree because I think they're going to be losing, right? So they want to run the ball more, is what I would say, Nick. And against an inferior team, somebody that they're favored against, for example, I think they'd be able to execute that game plan. They're likely, at least per what I'm looking at, I think that Buffalo is by and far the best team in the NFL. I think they're going to get smoked at home. I think they're going to be down a touchdown early, that sort of thing. And you got to wonder how long they can stick to that running game plan before they start playing catch up. And it's not like I think this is going to be a blowout, right? Not by any means. I think it'll be a completely competitive game, but I don't know if they're going to be able to stick to a running script the whole time. So that would be my only concern with that. If you were worried about the whole injury narrative with Stafford, I also tend to think that Stafford isn't really injured. I think that's a little bit overblown. But again, everyone's that's just the read that I have from it, right? I'm not always right about it. Definitely have to admit that, but that's definitely what I'm going with to this point. Is that the Stafford injury is a little bit overblown. Ryan says, I think that Justin Jefferson is better as well. Any concern with Cousins possibly nearing the end, but Burrow is just getting started? There is, but then there's always the opportunity that the Vikings go out there and get a better quarterback, right? Or end up drafting a quarterback that's even better than Joe Burrow. So there's the flip side there. There's a little bit of concern for sure. But I think Justin Jefferson, just based on what we've seen so far, even with a shitty quarterback, might go out there and post 1,500 yards. Now, Adam Thielen, the backup, might not be the same story, right? He'll drop off a lot faster than the masterclass of a talent like Justin Jefferson. So I definitely agree. There's a little bit of concern there, but I'm not sure it's enough to talk me off of it. I'd still rather have Justin Jefferson. Super says, what do you think about Lenny Fournette and Cook this year? I like, let's see, between Cook and Fournette, obviously they're different draft points, so it's probably not the best to compare them. I like Cook. I think he's all right. I've taken him in about 10% of drafts, which is slightly above the field. Lenny Fournette, I'm under the field on. I think with his injury concerns that I'm a little bit worried there. But with Higgins and Judy, I'm over the field on Judy. I think that whole Broncos offense is being a little bit underdrafted. And T. Higgins, I'm a little bit under the field on. So, and there's not really anything to that with Higgins. I think he's an okay play. Just guys I like a little bit more around him. So when it actually comes to executing my drafts, picking my teams, he's a little bit underrepresented for that reason. Nick says Robbie Anderson's pick on DraftKings is great. Yeah, dude, his hair looks like that guy from that one cartoon. I can't think of the name of the cartoon now, but he's got all the spiky hair. Yeah, he looks like a cartoon character. So we've got a pick 95 here. We do need a quarterback at some point. We can't neglect it for the whole draft. Tight end is completely stacked. Running back, I feel pretty decent about. I'm probably going to take Antonio Gibson here, to be honest with you. If he ends up falling to us, I'll take him. If not, there's plenty of other options at wide receiver, potentially even a quarterback to go to. The issue is people are overdrafting QBs in this draft. I've noticed that, right? Our top option ADP is at 102 right there. That's a lot lower than we're used to seeing. So I'm going to take Antonio Gibson. He should start at running back for Washington for quite some time. So while J.K. Dobbins is dealing with a little bit of injury concern, maybe doesn't start the first few weeks, Antonio Gibson will be able to hold me over till then. So I like that there. Let's try and take a wide receiver here. So for me, it's between Robert Woods, Scantling, perhaps going down to somebody like Lockett. I'm going to go ahead and take Robert Woods. The reasoning here is I don't have as much of Robert Woods as I'd like. He's the number one wide receiver down there in Tennessee. And though it is a low volume offense, Robert Woods is more of that short route specialist, or more of like a slot type wide receiver, a good blocking wide receiver. That's why they brought him down to Tennessee. I think a lot of people overshadow or just don't think about that. He's one of the best blocking wide receivers that we've ever had in the NFL. That's why he's on the Tennessee Titans. He's going to play almost every single snap. Key factor is here, right? He's going to catch a lot of the screens, a lot of the shorter routes when they maybe do play action, that sort of thing. And also probably get a lot of deep balls, right? If he's on a team that's so good at running the ball, imagine when they run play action and he can just take the top off of defense. I think that Robert Woods might be in line for a lot better season than people are giving him credit for, right? A.J. Brown is gone. Like now he's the number one option there. As Treylon Burks on that team too, who I also think might be worth a few looks. I'm okay with that there, especially, as our wide receiver number 4 at this point. So we have no quarterbacks, again, an issue, but pretty good at running back, wide receiver, and stacked at tight end. We got to think about taking Stafford at this point. I mean, we're now right about his ADP there. We have another 13 picks to go, so he'll probably be gone. A few guys that we might want to consider, though, are Tua, who we mentioned doing that Dolphin stack with. Cousins is a little bit of a better option, so I'd probably prefer that. Even Trevor Lawrence, I might prefer. So we might go quarterback next. So let's go ahead and see what ends up happening. There goes Stafford, which unfortunately might start a run of quarterbacks that kind of kills us, but we'll have to see. Robert says Baker at his ADP is an absolute slam dunk. Completely agree. I mean, what's his ADP at this point? At least on DraftKings, his ADP is 171. That's ridiculous. Yeah, he's going to post like 18, 19 points a game. Probably closer to 18, to be honest with you. But that's still over there in like round 15, something like that. That's an absolute steal. So we had Stafford go. We had Tyler Lockett go. Hopefully a few more quarterbacks can stay on the board for us there. That'd be pretty sweet, right? Get us there. Let's see what we got over there on prize picks. Did they end up adding the golf board? That'd be pretty sweet if they would here. Let's see what we've got. Nope, still no golf board. Is what it is. They're being a little bit slow with it. Understandable, I suppose. So there goes James Cook. Pretty solid pick. There goes McKenzie. Both those Bills players in a row. And now we're down to 7 picks remaining. So hopefully our quarterbacks can stay there. That'd be pretty nice. Because there are 2 that I really have my eye on. That's for damn sure. Nyheim Hines. I don't love him in best ball. I like him if you're stacking the Colts, but I don't love him as an isolated pick. Nyheim Hines, his ceiling is like 18 fantasy points, which, in best ball, like I mentioned, because it's so volatile, that's okay as a fill-in. Maybe for bye weeks, using him like once or twice a year, but you don't want to be relying on that production. So I'm lukewarm, I would say, right? It's a pretty applicable word there, lukewarm for his situation. So we haven't had these quarterbacks taken. You have to like it. Derek Carr is still there. Well below ADP. You got to love that. So he got taken. Let's go ahead and take our Tua. Let's go ahead and take our Tua stack. You got to love that. Go ahead and round that out there. Probably going to end up taking another quarterback too. So, assuming that our guy doesn't get taken over the next 2 picks, going to go ahead and slot him in there. Let's see who this M. Housack guy takes. Took Ertz. Okay. Yeah, I took all the tight ends. I have Mark Andrews and George Kittle, which is pretty ridiculous. Probably the strongest tight end group that you could possibly have, unless you went with Kelsey and then ended up taking somebody like Andrews. So he took Melvin Gordon. Let's see. Let's go ahead and take Kirk Cousins now. And ideally, we're going to take a third quarterback too. So here in a round or two, we'll take a third quarterback, make it a little bit of a 3-headed monster there. And we have the 1 stack moving with Cousins. We don't have anyone to match up with him, but perhaps with our last draft pick at quarterback, we can make a little bit of a backdoor stack. And there's one that I have in mind. So I'm not going to give it away just in case anyone that's in this draft is listening, because I definitely have something in the plans here. So we'll have to see about that. But I like the way this team is matching up at quarterback. We're okay now, right? We took 2 in a row. We're able to get 2 average quarterbacks. Running back, I love. Wide receiver, we're well on our way at that position. Just really need to kill it here over the next 3 or 4 rounds. From rounds 12 through 15, we really need to kill it at the wide receiver position. So hopefully we can do so. So we got going down chat. We got Super Saiyan who says, I've got Allen QB with Cook and Lenny. Okay. So that's your lineup there. What would you grade the team as a whole? So let me see what you've got. I like your situation at running back. That's a strong running back duo, that's for sure. Wide receivers are meh, right? They're serviceable. They're kind of getting by there. I would say that your team, I'm assuming it's either an 8 or a 10 team league, probably a 10 team league, is strong at quarterback, running back, also at tight end. I would say at wide receiver, just keep an eye on the waiver pool, right? Anytime one of those top end receivers goes down, perhaps think about taking that 3rd, 4th string wide receiver off of waivers, because by the end of the year, you're probably going to need to improve that a little bit, right? I know you have Devontae there. You're using as a flex right now. A few guys probably in your bench that'll be serviceable backups. Just maybe keep an extra eye on those wide receivers. I like the rest of your lineup, though. It's a strong team as a whole. And I have to give it like a B+ or an A- as a whole. Definitely a pretty solid team. You had a few guys drop to you, I can tell. Definitely pretty good value there in terms of your ADP. What I'm thinking about right now is trying to get some of these stud wide receivers. And I'm not talking about in terms of usage rate. So we're not going to be getting guys here that are number 2, maybe especially not number 1 wide receivers. But what we can get here are guys that might work themselves into that kind of role. One of those players, and the guy who just drafted him was really sharp in doing so, is Jahan Dotson, right? Coming out here as a rookie. Dotson could go out there, earn something from like a 10% role in week 1, maybe work it closer to 20% by the end of the year. That is well within his range of outcomes. I've heard a lot of really good things about Dotson through training camp, through preseason, everything like that. And we'll have to see if it comes to fruition. I'll definitely be there myself. I believe I have like 12% of Dotson the last time I checked. So well over the field in that category. We have Higbee, who just went. We have another 8 picks to go. So still a good amount of people to draft before us. And we're starting to really dwindle on the board here. I have to say that this draft is by far my least favorite that we've had so far, but it's also unique because we have such strength at tight end, because we're running with a Dolphin stack that I don't have before. So it has utility. It has its time and place in my portfolio when it comes to my best ball lineups, but definitely not reflective. I just want to put this out there right now. Definitely not reflective of a lot of my player pool, a lot of my portfolio, because I'm hardly able to even get Jonathan Taylor. And then, like I mentioned, I think this is one of only 3 or 4 drafts where I've even taken Tyreek Hill. So it's definitely a little bit of a weird one, but we'll take it. Got to get a little bit of exposure to some of those fringe prospects that you're okay with. All right, another 5 picks to go, 6 picks, pretty close. Super Saiyan says it's a 12-team league, so hopefully Olave and Smith go off. Really strong team for a 12-team league. Definitely have to say that then. I figured it was 10 teams, right? because you had such a good team there. But hey, 12-team league, even better. Shows you what I know about that there. So Romeo Dubes went, okay. There goes Garrett Wilson. So our pick here, ideally wide receiver, but in terms of ADP, you're not getting great value. So we might have to fish on somebody. I'm going to be willing to do so because there are guys that I do prioritize in this range. Let's see who we have. I don't want to give away a pick. Took Michael Carter. That's okay. I'm going to go ahead and take Devontae Parker. It's our turn. Might as well just go and draft him. Like him quite a bit there. And if it comes back around to us and Gage is still there, I'm going to go ahead and fire on him too. But let's see what our options are. If he's gone, KJ Osborne, Juice Landry, definitely serviceable backup options there too. Come on, boys. We're in a best ball quick draft. Let's try and make this quick. I wish there was a chat box where you could kind of like push people to make their picks quicker. Shouldn't take the 30 seconds every time. Like, come on, man. You're going to go on auto pick now, aren't you? Great. Love to see it, huh? Somebody out there just not paying attention to their draft. It's good for us, gives us a little bit more value, but it's a little bit annoying from the time perspective, I do have to say. He's going to get 2 picks in a row. Look at that. So he's going to end up with Madison now too. Madison, not the worst pick, by the way. He's being shopped in draft and trade rumors right now. So if he ends up getting traded, he's a lot better pick. But look at this. Look at this guy. Just, hey, he handed us Russell Gage. Can't complain there. I was hoping that would fall to us. But we got to get this guy an auto pick, right? So that he stops taking so much time. That'd be ideal. Is he on auto pick? Let's see. Yep, he's on auto pick. You can stay that way, buddy. Oh, there goes the screen. All right, let's see if there's any questions down there. No, Super Saiyan, nothing down there right now. It's okay. One thing I'll say about week 1, so we have 19 picks, right? So we have a lot of time in between here, are the stacks that I like. So like I mentioned before, if you want to get a little bit unique here, try and differentiate yourself in terms of taking ownership, I think it's the expensive stacks. And now they're not going to be completely overlooked. I mentioned that they're going to be lower owned than they should be, but they still might be like 10% owned. I mean, you still might see like a 8 to 10% Patrick Mahomes. You might still see 10 to 12% there on Justin Herbert. But with their matchups against Arizona, against Las Vegas, you might argue that they should be owned closer to like 15 to 20%, should be cornerstone pieces, whereas that's going to end up being Jalen Hurts. That's going to end up being somebody down here at $5,000 like a Daniel Jones. While it's not completely unwarranted, I see myself getting to those sort of stacks. In terms of players I like mixing in terms of the stack with Mahomes, I love Travis Kelce. $6,600 is at the top of the tight end board. But if you compare it to some of the circumstances last year, you have a ton of guys that are being underpriced is a better word, because you had like $8,300 Waller last year. You had $7,500 Travis Kelce a lot of times on slates. And now Mark Andrews is deservingly the most expensive, especially because of his matchup, but he's $6,800. That's cheaper than he should be, especially for Kelce. So if you're looking for, a Lamar Jackson to Mark Andrews stack, which I think is extremely valuable, or a Mahomes to Kelce stack, I think it makes a lot of sense. And it's a lot more affordable than a lot of people think. So I'll be getting to a lot of those. At wide receiver, a lot of the mid-tier stacks I like. So if you go to Herbert, he's a little bit more affordable because you can take Allen and Mike Williams. The only thing I'll warn about is that if you take that stack where you go Herbert, Allen, and Williams, you're going to be duped like 10,000 times. So my word of advice would be, if you're going to do that, take Herbert, your favorite between Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, and fix it off with either a tight end or somebody like Joshua Palmer, right? So that would be my advice for that sort of strategy. And I guess let's look at defenses, right? I always like punting at defense, so I don't mind going to the bottom here. Bears defense, not a horrible pick. Steelers defense, I will always play as a homer here. Not much we're going to talk about with defense. It's the most boring position to pick when it comes to fantasy football. And I don't know, scatter shot down low. You need that defense in the GPP that's going to go out there and score you a touchdown on defense or return a kick for a touchdown. And good luck guessing who that's going to be. That's all I'll say. Picking defenses in DFS is truly a punt. Robert says, typical RPS slappies. Yeah, it doesn't surprise me. Super says, yeah, I got Cook first round, and you had the 9th pick. Okay. And you got Lenny after the snake format. I will say, yeah, you took Lenny Fournette a little bit early. That would be like the one thing I have to say is a little bit of a critique there of your lineup, but you can make it work. Maybe even trade, right? If you end up getting a lot of value on Lenny, let's say he starts the year extremely strong, and maybe you can trade him for a running back and a starting level wide receiver, maybe go for it. Ryan says, what are your thoughts on Amari Cooper this year, wide receiver 3 or flex play? I think he's right in that range. I think you hit the nail on the head right there. I like him just because he's going to get Deshaun Watson back after week 11. And that's when you're heading into the playoffs, when you need him to be his best self. And through the first 11 weeks, he's still like the only wide receiver that they have. So his volume is going to be through the roof. So in a PPR format like DraftKings, I'm not sure in your league whether it's PPR. I assume it is, right? Almost every league is at this point. I like Amari Cooper quite a bit. You love the Lions punt. Yeah, so I'll be probably playing the Lions on defense. We'll have to see. And Robert says, was Washington and Jax too? Let's see. I don't know who they're playing off the top of my head. I should know this. Washington's playing against Jacksonville. I could see it. And then you have Jacksonville playing against Washington. Yes, and they're both $2,500. Yeah, I mean, if one of them scores a touchdown, right, that's going to be a relatively low-scoring game. I could see it. They could be that optimal defense. I could see it for sure. I hate defenses, bro. I almost always get the defense right that scores the touchdown, right? But I usually play like 5% of them. Like I don't play enough of them. It's such a shitty part of DFS. I wish there wasn't even defenses when it came to fantasy football, to be honest with you. I wish it wasn't even part of the process. Either way, though, it is. We have to deal with it. Let's go ahead and draft here on best ball where defenses aren't a thing. And ideally, I do want another wide receiver. And one of my favorite options fell into our lap. That is Marvin Jones. Love him there with Trevor Lawrence. Should get quite a bit of a huge bump here in this next year. And I believe he's technically their wide receiver 1. I mean, he's not really a wide receiver 1 level talent, but in the red zone, he is a big bodied threat, somebody who can go up there, high point the ball. I like his chances to bring down some touchdowns. And look, this guy's back, by the way. So he wasn't really on auto pick, ended up coming back. Like, come on, bro, let's make our picks. You're here now and you're waiting until the last 8 seconds. It's not that difficult, right? Like, sure, if you have to think about it a little bit, like go ahead and think about it, bro. But like, it shouldn't take that long. So let's go ahead and pick this. I really like taking one of these guys at the top. I'm going to go ahead. Let's go ahead and add another quarterback. I mentioned we did need a third quarterback. I'm going to take Mac Jones. I'm a lot higher on Mac Jones this year than a lot of other people. That puts us with Cousins. We have Tua and Mac Jones. So 3 quarterbacks that I'm not all that enthralled with, but because we have 3 starting level, I think top 15, top 20 level quarterbacks, we can probably get by with that production. So I don't feel great about it, but it is what it is. When you don't have a super strong quarterback, sometimes you have to play it by committee, and that's essentially what we're doing here. We have 2 really strong tight ends. I have no interest in taking another one. I think we're absolutely stacked there. At running back, I feel pretty solid there too. Well, I wouldn't mind one more running back. I think that we have our core 3, so maybe one more there and a bunch of wide receivers. Go ahead and round out this draft. Let's see what we got. Let me get that off the screen there from Robert. We have another 17 picks, so we might as well go and look at this round 1 slate. I just called it round 1. It's not golf. This is football now, the week 1 slate. So we talked about some of the stacks up top. In this middle tier, there's a few that I'll be getting to. I mean, first off, the other side of the Chargers game. I mean, anytime you're playing against that offense with such high pace, such high volume, you always have to consider the other side, particularly if it's a competent offense like the Las Vegas Raiders. So even if they get blown out of the water, are down by 10 to 14 points in the second half, Derek Carr is going to be out there slinging it, trying to get his team back into play, and could be at $5,900 a great pivot off of Daniel Jones, because that $900, sure, it can buy you 1-2 positions worth of value, but at the same time, the ceiling performance between the two, I'd say that at least a 5, maybe 6+ point ceiling difference between the 2 players. Like Derek Carr can get you to 28, 29 points. Daniel Jones, unless he goes out there and gets you an 80-yard touchdown on the ground, like he's done like once in his career, is it going to get you to like 28 fantasy points? So I tend to try and prefer some of the pivots in this range. Tua is even a pivot that you could take. Now he's going against New England, which isn't an ideal matchup, but you might have to live with that. Let's see. Jared Goff, I don't think is the worst idea to stack either. I'd rather have him than Daniel Jones. Like if Jared Goff's going to be like 1% owned and somebody like Daniel Jones might be like 15 to 20%, then I'd rather play Jared Goff. And again, Jared Goff's a much worse quarterback, especially when it comes to production. But if you're going to tell me that he's 15 times less likely to succeed, that's just full of it. That's not the case, right? It's probably closer to like a 60-40 prospect or 65-35 at the very most prospect between the two players. Or maybe it's like a 2-1 odds plus 200 odds that player would go out there and succeed. It's not 15-1. It's not 10-1. It's not even 6 or 7-1 to win, right? So you're looking at a pretty large difference there. So that's the idea. There's a lot of guys in this range, like Mac Jones. I'd even rather play Baker Mayfield against Cleveland. I think that he'll probably get a little bit of attention, but you have to keep an eye on that. We know that Baker Mayfield's going to try and absolutely dissect them. Just a lot of guys you can take rather than the chalk. So consider some of those pivots, particularly if you're trying to pivot there and not up top. Because again, if you take, Derek Carr, $5,900, you can still afford somebody like Jonathan Taylor. You can still afford to take those premium wide receivers, yet you're not on a 20% owned quarterback, cornering yourself into, 20, 30,000 other entries that you have to compete against. I think that's always the wise move. So we're 5 picks away. Ideally, want a wide receiver. Might take a running back here. I'm not going to take Daniel Jones. We already have our stud quarterbacks, our stud combination of our 3 average quarterbacks. But in terms of one of these backup depth sort of players, at least at running back position, there's a few guys that I like. So let's, we got 4 picks. Should be able to take one of these. Wow, actually, it's been scraped. We're going to take Warren here at some point. We know that. Probably going to take Jeff Wilson Jr. with this pick. Let's see what happens. Might have to take Warren. I don't know. I really don't want Warren getting picked before we go. I'm just not a fan of that happening. If it does, we'll take Jeff Wilson Jr. I mean, he's right around ADP. But Warren, just because he's that number 2 running back for the Steelers now, he's being completely underrepresented. That's for sure. So we'll have to see what happens. After that, we might go with another wide receiver or 2. I mean, Jamison Williams, if he's still there when we draft over there at 194, may be the move at that point. Another player who won't start to begin the year, is going to be on the sideline for quite some time. But when he gets back, could be putting up fringe wide receiver 2, wide receiver 3 production at the very least. Tyron Davis price went, okay. Not the biggest fan there. That's okay. I don't think I've drafted him in any of my pools, which doesn't feel great. You like to have at least a little bit of exposure, but I'm not going to be there. Yeah, I'm going to take Warren here. Go ahead and just take him off the board. I don't want to miss out on that. I've mentioned that I think he's one of the better values you can take down low, and that, depending on the draft you're in, if you're with people that are educated, he'll probably start to get drafted right around the 16th to 17th round. But if you're in a draft with people that don't know what they're doing, he might not get drafted, right? So it's a case of how long you're willing to wait on it, right? Kind of gambling on the ability of the rest of the players. So we have 4 running backs. I'm going to go ahead and just take Jeff Wilson Jr. just because in terms of value, I think he's by far the best running back on the board. So we're good with that position. We have 5, 3 that should be starting throughout the season, 2 that might be fringe prospects to get there, like backups like Jeff Wilson Jr., backup like a Jaylen Warren. So I really like our running back position. Quarterback's okay. Tight end is absolutely stacked. So we're going to have, 3 rounds left of just taking wide receivers. So let's go ahead and mark a few down. Williams will be gone by the next time we draft. We're not up for 18 picks. But guys we could take. David Bell, I've been trying to take a little bit more of. Fulgham, I don't hate the idea of, but I'd ideally rather have Bell. Let's go ahead and put Curtis Samuel, Van Jefferson on there, and see if any of these fall to us. Ideally, we can get 2 of these 3 wide receivers, and I feel pretty happy about it. Down there in chat, we do have a few comments. So Ryan says, Dak Schultz stack feels like an underrated stack. Yeah, so I actually have a few that go CeeDee Lamb, took him there in the second round, end up taking Schultz and Dak Prescott. I like it quite a bit. And even if you just go with the QB tight end combo there, I like it quite a bit too. I think you're onto something there. They're a high efficiency offense, particularly Dak. He's being drafted way below where I think he should be in terms of ADP. I think he'd do a whole lot worse. Is Baker still there is the question. No, he's not. Right? Baker got picked in the last round or so. That's to be expected. Let's see. Chandra says, def a slapdick roster. No idea who's got the slapdick roster, to be honest with you. If you're talking about me because I have all these Dolphins players, yeah, I agree. I haven't had that kind of roster in quite some time. But I honestly like who else I have here. I like a lot of the depth that I have. I mean, quarterback is just like a carousel of guys I don't like. That's the one position that I feel is ugly. But Jonathan Taylor, love Dobbins. These wide receivers are all like well above average ADP players. Like I had Renfro fall to me. I had Waddle fall to me too. Obviously fills out the stack too, so I don't hate that. I don't know. It's a roster of misfits, is what I'll say. The tight end position is just absolutely stacked. Like we're gonna probably have our flex filled at least half of our weeks by somebody like an Andrews or a Kittle. So a lot of these fringe level wide receivers, they might not get as much usage in the flex position, but because we have slapdicks like Tyreek Hill and Waddle together, it's unlikely that they go out there and have ceiling performances on the same week, unless Tua's throwing for like 400 yards, which again, we're hoping happens in the postseason, right? Weeks 15 through 17, we're kind of hoping carries us there. I don't know, man. I'm glad I got to this lineup. I'll just say that it's not one that I have any other iterations of. Definitely a little bit unique, but you got to have these wacky lineups out there. I mean, every year when you look at the actual winning lineups, whether it's on Underdog for their Best Ball Mania, the large millionaire makers over here on DraftKings for Best Ball, it always has those running backs. I mean, first off, like the running backs that end up going off at the end of the year, like a Jeff Wilson Jr., Chuba Hubbard from last year, and then just some random stack that you would never have expected. I mean, just in terms of ones that come to mind last year, I mean, you had league winners like Rashad Penny last year. Believe it or not, that Seahawks stack last year ended up having a lot of success where it was quarterback, running back, wide receiver from that team, had success in week 16 and 17. I talked about Jeff Wilson Jr. being a league winner, just complete slapdick plays that no one was drafting Jeff Wilson Jr., for example, assuming that he was going to get into that sort of role. I believe he was like the third running back to start the year. So there's crazy picks that end up paying off, man. It's funny how that happens. Let's see what we got here. We got 4 other draft picks till we go. We're on round 18. So David Bell's definitely in consideration. I can see Van Jefferson is still there because a lot of these DK players way overbear 1 week worth of injuries. I mean, we talked about it before. A few guys that are questionable heading into week 1 that might not play week 1 that are being drafted 2 to 3 rounds later than they should be just because of 1 week's performance. So we'll see. We're only 1 pick away. Maybe he drops to us. If not, clear backup in David Bell that I'll be adding to my roster. Look, Jefferson fell to us. And I know he's not going to play this week. He's not practicing. I believe here on Tuesday, Van Jefferson's also not on the practice field. That's fine by me. It's 1 week of the season. I'm not really all that worried about it, right? Particularly in best ball where we're looking to win weeks 15 through 17 to really get any sort of actual ROI. And that's the thing that people don't realize. If you're playing best ball to make it to the playoffs, you're playing it incorrectly. It doesn't matter if you make 10 times your money because you make it into the playoffs. What really matters is when you get to week 16 and week 17 and your payouts are thousands of dollars. When you make it to week 17, you're dealing with, $5,000 at a minimum as a payout. Those are the weeks that matter a whole lot, right? And especially when you get life-changing money for finishing up there in the top 3 of week 17, that sort of thing. You're trying to play for those weeks. So you got to be a little bit creative. Looks like we did get sniped there on David Bell, is what it is. He's a sharp pick, that's for sure. Do want a wide receiver here, though, so we're not going to force in a running back. Laviska Shenault's there. He's been almost like a shoe-in for me on the last rounds of drafts that I've been doing. Somebody who, with an offense that'll be upgraded there over there in Jacksonville, he's both a rushing and a passing threat. I think as they start to score more as a team, you're going to see his production follow. And we have a little bit of a mini stack going. We do have somebody like Marvin Jones Jr. there, also Laviska Shenault. So a little bit of correlation potentially for weeks 15 through 17, but nothing too crazy. Didn't end up taking, we didn't take Lawrence, right? Yeah, didn't take Trevor Lawrence. That would have been nice, I guess, retroactively, but we had no idea of knowing we were going to get to Laviska Shenault. So we're here in round 20 now. We have 9 wide receivers, 5 running backs. I suppose we could take another tight end, but I think that's a little bit unnecessary. So if Rob Gronkowski is there, I'll take him just due to pure upside, especially because we don't need Gronk to get signed for this lineup to matter. I mean, if we end up getting a pure dud here because he doesn't end up playing this year, then so be it. I mean, we have George Kittle and Mark Andrews. Like, I'm not worried about the tight end position, to say the least out there. But if we end up getting all 3 of them and Rob Gronkowski, I mean, we might be looking at the strongest group of tight ends that are humanly imaginable. So I like that. We're another 13 picks away, so we'll have to see what happens there. You like Van Jefferson? Yeah, I like him quite a bit. I'm glad we were able to get him. He fell to us. And again, the only reason he's not getting drafted is because he's not going to play this week. Like, who cares about week 1? It's 1 week of a 17-week season, and it's not even in the playoffs. So yeah, I think some of these people draft like slapdicks. They overbear 1 week's of results, and like they won't take chances on Rob Gronkowski because he's not signed on a team yet. I mean, I'd say there's above a 50% chance this year that Gronk ends up signing with the Tampa Bay Bucks. Like at least 50% chance. Would not surprise me. If not another team. I mean, he talked about playing for Vegas during his UFC presser that he did about a month and a half ago. So that's also well within the cards. So don't run any of that past Gronk. Got 9 more picks to go. Again, this is going to be the last draft that we do. So if you do have any questions, any comments, feel free to go ahead and toss them down in the chat right now. So 7 picks to go. Gronk is still there. We don't need another quarterback, or else I would consider taking somebody like a Carson Wentz, perhaps even like a Desmond Ritter if we wanted to get a little bit crazy about it. But we're going to stick to Gronk if we can take him. Another 7 picks here. Guys, in the 20th round, it should not take you this long to pick. I'm just going to go ahead and say that right now. You should be able to go out there and pretty much fire your picks in about like 5 to 10 seconds, unless you get sniped, which I guess I understand. But these guys, they're taking some time. Denzel Mims. Oof. I have so many of his rookie cards of like jersey cards and whatnot from sports card packages that I've bought. Just a horrible player. Never sees the field. I hope he plays well just for the sake of all the sports cards. But boy, oh boy, has he been an absolute dumpster fire to this point. Noah Brown, okay. Carson Wentz, okay. Yeah, don't need the quarterback, so that's okay with me. Let's see if we can get Gronk, second to last pick. If not, we're taking Fulgham or Foreman. You don't need a 6th running back, but I'll take Foreman if we have to. Take a little shot on the guy backing up CMC if he gets injured. And of course, this guy takes whole 23 seconds, whatever is what it is. So we'll take Rob Gronkowski, go ahead and eat it off there. This lineup, again, seems a little bit out there. It's, again, not what I'm used to drafting when it comes to my portfolio, but that's how it works when it comes to best ball, right? You have to have a whole portfolio worth of lineups. This is the only Dolphins stack that I have out of all 133 lineups that I've run so far. I like Taylor. I like having Dobbins there. That's the clear strength of the team. Wide receiver is extremely deep. We have the best possible tight ends that you can possibly have. So while we're a little bit weak when it comes to our quarterback exposure, while it's maybe a little bit, I don't want to say weak at running back, but maybe, not ideal just with our running back too, because of Dobbins having the injury concern. There are things that we had to give away with this lineup, but I think that we're getting a lot of upside, right? By having a Jonathan Taylor, by being able to get to just 2 stud tight ends that we might be able to use together from week to week. I'm okay getting to this exposure. It's not ideal, but it's certainly okay. Let's look at some of the other guys here that drafted. The guy who was drafting after me, his lineup looks like just pure decimation. I don't really enjoy it. So this is a guy who picked first. You can see he picked CMC first and then kind of got screwed there towards the end. So yeah, I'm not a huge fan of that lineup. Let's see the guy who drafted in last. I always take a look at that. So the guy who drafted in last obviously went Henry and then Aaron Jones. That's a pretty damn good start to your lineup. And see, I like drafting towards the end. Like I always complain about not being able to get a bunch of Jonathan Taylor or somebody like CMC. You end up getting a lot of good draft value. So there's always give and takes there. But again, I pretty much like the build that we got there. So that's all I've got here for the live stream, boys. We're going to go ahead and wrap it up there. A long one, nearly 3 hours long. But I appreciate everybody who stopped by, chilled with us, went through week 1 Thursday night football, prize picks, all that sort of fun stuff. Expect to see even more content this week covering the main slate. So I'm going to put out a video covering 4 of my favorite options at every position. And it's not going to be in my top 4 projected plays. It's going to be more of the game theory aspect, right? Trying to take pivots at quarterback, wide receiver, running back, all of the sort of positions that maybe you aren't hearing other people talk up. So look forward to that. That'll be coming out either tomorrow morning or tomorrow afternoon. And then on Thursday afternoon, I'm assuming it's either going to be 5 p.m. Eastern or right there at 6 p.m. Eastern time, going to be going live before Thursday night football. So talking about the inactives and actives list, going to talk about practice participation, any changes to my player pool and projections throughout the week. So make sure to keep an eye on that for all the latest news for Thursday. But excited for the season, everybody. Let's go ahead and get this cash and hopefully maybe take home one of these best ball tournaments too.